The play action, or that launch downfield for Worthy in the double coverage, and it's intercepted by Hodges Tomlinson. And he's a threat with the ball in his hand, so TCU set up again in plus territory, and the very rough start continues for Ewers.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
29 touchdown passes last year. This one's knocked up. Bowers tips it to himself, and he'll score. Touchdown, Georgia.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Jones is, but he swaps. Williams fooled me. Fooled the defense, kept it. A keeper for a touchdown, and Caleb Williams having an outstanding half.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Ewers with the snap, turns, hands to Robinson. Bijan trying to follow a block, cuts it outside, drops it back inside. 25-20. Oh my goodness, forget it. Touchdown. Bijan Robinson. A 32-yard touchdown run. His fourth touchdown of the ball game.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Pressure again. It's picked up. Duggan, though, running out of time. He's got a lot of space. He can run again. Max Duggan, first down. Tight ropes the sideline. It is finally shoved out of bounds. Max Duggan on the ground has been the story of this drive.
Now, here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
A lot of the awards and honors in college football were given out last night. Some of them were known prior to the awards type event and function. There is one left, and that is the Heisman Trophy tomorrow. There are 4 finalists, and last night we found out who finished 5th through 10th in the voting. ESPN unveiled that. We're going to show that to you now. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left, and Garrett Ross and Jack McKenzie today in studio. So leave that up for a second, Garrett, because we can talk about this. Hendon Hooker, there's no doubt in my mind, as a Heisman voter and also as someone who loves college football, would have been a part of the New York City trip. I don't know who would have been knocked out, but to me, had he stayed healthy, Hendon Hooker would have been among the top 4.
Stetson Bennett would have been knocked out.
Probably would have been Stetson Bennett.
Yeah.
So Hooker, 5. That's still very high considering he was knocked out. Bryce Young, the defending Heisman Trophy winner, at number 6. He ended up, I think, with better stats perhaps this year than he had last year. But they also have the 2 losses, those losses to Tennessee and LSU.
Yeah, it's always going to be hard for the defending Heisman Trophy winner who comes back to win it. You know, Jameis didn't win it. Johnny didn't win it. Tebow didn't win it again. Mm-hmm. You know, Bryce Young didn't win it again.
Only one has.
Yeah. I don't know if that'll ever happen again. I mean,
Caleb
Williams
be really
is
coming back next year, buddy. So,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think he's winning it tomorrow night. I mean, if I just had to pick right now, I would be completely blown away in a good way if, you know, Max Duggan's name were to be called, or, you know, I'm sure for other people out there, if they were to hear, you know, a different name other than Caleb Williams called, you know, Georgia fans with Stetson Bennett and who am I missing? Who's the 4th finalist? Bennett,
C.J. Stroud.
Or Ohio State fans with C.J. Stroud. I think Duggan's the only one, in my opinion, that really has a chance to make it somebody other than Caleb Williams. You know, there's always the voting breakdown of how the regions went. And then, you know, if you've got guys that are clumped together that maybe split votes and things like that, that will be all analyzed after tomorrow night, depending on how the votes go, will inevitably, like 2 minutes after the ceremony wraps up, see like the East voted, 25% for this guy. And we'll see all that breakdown. But yeah, I feel pretty confident that it's going to be Caleb Williams or Max Duggan. And then, Hendon Hooker, I mean, going through the rest of the list here that you were starting with, I think Hendon Hooker was definitely deserving of a spot. The other guys.
Well, but what about Corum if they had not been out the last couple of weeks? How much could he have basically forced himself into the top 4?
I mean, I don't think there's really anything he was going to do to force himself in that top 4. I mean, in my opinion, I think he's a fine running back. I think he's really good and all that. But I think when you saw what happened, in his absence, not much of a drop-off for Michigan football. They didn't, suddenly start losing games with him not fully healthy. I think that kind of overshadowed his year. The fact that you had Donovan Edwards come in there and put up great numbers, and everybody's like, oh, so he's not that, so you could just plug and play, basically. And I don't think it's that simple, but I do think that was a thought that crossed a lot of Heisman voters' minds. Bryce Young's been good, but I think that, Alabama is just not as good as they typically are, and not where we typically view them in the college football playoffs, so that's a big ding on him. And, quite frankly, that's fair because so often a lot of weight is put on the team itself. So if they're down a little bit, then just makes sense that it dings his stock. I do think it's massively disappointing if you're an Alabama fan, if you're an observer, that Bryce Young's not in the going to have a national championship when all is said and done because he's going to be heading to the NFL. So that's a big missed opportunity there for Alabama football. But you guys can go through some of the rest here.
Well, let's do that. Blake Corum at 7. Maybe he would have nudged up another 1 or 2, but he missed the game against Ohio State, and Edwards went off, and then, of course, the championship game in the Big Ten. Penix had a huge year, led the country in passing yards at the FBS level. He's coming back. Bijan, who we'll show you in a minute, won the Doak Walker Award, finished with the most yards from scrimmage for a running back, and for anyone as far as outside of being a quarterback. At number 9, I was surprised. I thought he would be like at 6 or 7. The 2 games and you dig into all of this, is the game against Alabama and then the game, of course, against TCU, 12 carries for 29 yards and did not catch a pass. The offense for Texas, but both teams' offenses struggled. And then there's the freshman, who there was a thought about a month ago that he might just barrel right into that top 4. Didn't do it, finished at number 10 because the finish for him in North Carolina wasn't quite the same. But those are numbers 5 through number 10. And we have a note about Bijan here in just a second.
I don't see you jumping up the Heisman race if you lose 3 games on the way out. And that's what happened in North Carolina.
And his numbers weren't even that good. Yeah, it wasn't like he was throwing 5 touchdowns and they were losing games because they got outscored, by – I mean, he wasn't that great either.
So Paxton asked in the chat room, but I thought I'd tell everybody else. He made the point of, Blake Corum finished ahead of Bijan Robinson, but Bijan Robinson won the Doak Walker. Well, a lot of different people vote. Like, the Heisman is – 900 some odd people voting for it. The Doak Walker and the Blitnikoff and all that is a lot of different people. Most of us don't have Heisman votes. For example, I vote for the Blitnikoff and the Doak Walker and all the other awards. I voted for, probably 90% of them. And I don't have a Heisman vote. Smokey has a Heisman vote. I don't. But we're both members of the Football Writers Association, but I don't have a Heisman vote yet. I hope to one day. That'd be lovely. I voted for the Doak Walker. Since he's won it now, I told you, I almost wrote Bijan Robinson in 3 times because I thought he was the best running back. But it was my top 3 were Bijan Robinson, Blake Corum, and Chase Brown. So
and Bijan again, Texas and the Doak Walker Award. It's almost as if they should put a UT logo up on that. So he finished at 9 in the voting. And so I know, Paxton, you've been really adamant about New York City or whatever. Again, there's only 4. It's like if we pick a top 5, we can't have 5 and then add 3. But there's no doubt Bijan Robinson, first of all, an incredibly good young man. Now, speaking of which, Craig mentioned this to me a little bit ago. This is out there today. Bijan Robinson, Roschon Johnson, and also Overshown, the linebacker, have all decided to opt out of their bowl game against Washington.
I'm not surprised by this. I know, so you said that you thought that Bijan, because he's Bijan and he's the ultimate teammate, might do it. I just think that he's done enough for Texas. He's done everything that he can, and it's time for him. He might be the only first-round running back. If you look around draft grades right now from the draftniks and the people who are high up and they're doing it, and again, part of that is just the way that they view running back now. Bijan Robinson is probably the only running back in the first round. And then guys who will come out after him, Devon A-Chain is out right now. So A-Chain's probably a second-round pick somewhere in there. And, Corum's probably a second-round pick. Guys like Chase Brown, if he comes out, can he come out? I don't know if he can. I can't remember what year he is. But those guys are all second, third-round picks, the other super studs at running back. And then there's going to be a guy who you think is amazing at running back that gets picked in the 5th round because that's just how people feel about running backs.
Chase Brown's a junior, so yes, he can come back. And DeMarvion Overshown and Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, that was a report from Inside Texas. They were the ones that put that out there, so that's where that emanated from. And it wasn't like this is official, but it's like, hey, the expectations are they're not playing in this game. I'm not surprised. We had this little back and forth yesterday, and I said, I wouldn't be shocked at all if Bijan Robinson didn't play in this game. I actually was a little bit more surprised by the idea of Roschon, but then again, if he's dinged up and he's hurt and he's wanting to get ready for the draft, then I don't fault him at all for that. He's played a lot of football in Austin. He can do whatever he wants to. Same thing with Overshown. And, it's not like it's the Sugar Bowl or I think they're in a good bowl game. I just think that, if it was a playoff game, obviously they're playing in that. If it was perhaps, one of those New Year's Day type bowl games, maybe they decide to do differently. But being a game that, they've, like in most cases at Texas, you've played in the Alamo Bowl if you've been around for 4 or 5 years, right? I mean, they kind of revisit that thing every couple of years, it seems. Then, it's not something that outweighs your NFL future, especially if you're somebody like a Bijan that stands to earn a lot of money here in the next few months. But I don't fault guys if they decide to play or if they don't decide to play. It's their bodies and their things that they have to worry about versus just me going, I'd love to see Bijan and Roschon and DeMarvion, which is kind of sound like a trio of brothers or something, but I'd love to see those guys play. But I totally get the decision not to, if in fact that's what ends up happening. That's bowl season for you in today's college football.
So a couple of things that I want to get to, and Paxton said Roschon and Bijan have set some high standards for the young guys. UT's running back history, we know, is incredible. One of the other questions,
Jonathan Brooks out there and let him get some good burn, and their other young backs, that'll be good for them.
They'll be just fine. And then also Paxton was saying they've done enough already for the University of Texas. From TJ Scott, this is a good question. Would you explain the Heisman voting to those? Do the 900 some voters vote, and is it over? Yes. The deadline for voting for the Heisman Trophy, I believe, was Monday at 5. I voted right before, 11 or 12 o'clock Sunday morning after I watched every single game the day before, or as many as I could, and checked everything one more time. The voting is simple. A first place, if you vote for 3 guys, 1, 2, and 3, a first place vote is 3 points. A second place vote is 2. Just like the polls in the top 25, the third place vote is worth 1. So then what they do, they get all the votes. They look at everything by Monday afternoon, and then they spit out that number or who is going to be invited based on the voting. They changed it about 3 or 4 years ago at times. Sometimes it was 3. Now they've gone to 4 now for the last 4 or 5 years, and so that is the voting. And again, I get a vote. And when I got the email, I was stunned by it because it's a huge honor and also an incredible responsibility. So those are 5 through 10. Thank you for a lot of you already on the chat room today and also today who have been a part of the text line. So here are some of the names of the elite awards that were handed out. And at the top, yes, Bijan Robinson, the Doak Walker Award for the best running back in college football. That is not a surprise, although I'm sure Corum, Brown, and maybe, maybe there was another one or two that might have been a part of that, at least that discussion. Jim Thorpe Award, local young man who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago. Travius Hodges Tomlinson, TCU, went to Midway High School, won the Jim Thorpe Award. Fantastic. I've seen some All-American teams, and there might be 15 of those. Like CBS Sports has theirs. The Athletic has theirs. There's the AP. There's this and that. I haven't seen him as a first-team All-American, at least on the ones I've looked at. He won the Jim Thorpe Award, and congratulations to the young man who was destined to play where his uncle, LaDainian Tomlinson, played at TCU.
Yeah, I remember his senior year clamoring for Matt Rule and their staff to offer him, and they would not. They did not, based on what the return was, they did not like his size, which, the NFL's evolved a little bit in the 3 or 4 years since then, and I think Travius is going to be just fine, finding a spot at the next level. But I remember at the time they were looking for bigger, faster, stronger dudes and NFL bodies, and that was a big part of why you saw their draft class last year have so many guys, go and have opportunities. That a lot of that credit goes to Matt Rule. Dave Aranda finished the polishing, but Matt Rule got those guys onto campus, and that's one thing Nebraska fans can look forward to, is that he is going to evaluate really well, and he's going to develop really well, and then he's going to get guys drafted. And I didn't listen to his whole introductory speech, but I'm sure that was in there somewhere, because that's just his MO and his staff's MO. But Travius, I don't think he was big enough to fit their mold. And, then when they got down to it, I remember signing day rolled around and Travius popped a graphic saying he was committed to Baylor because they had finally offered him there late in the process. And yet there was something wrong, because 5 seconds later, the graphic was deleted. And I remember being live on the air like, what just happened? I know I saw that. And then it turns out, after getting off air and finding out what was actually going on, that basically he had decided to commit but not sign, because TCU and Gary Patterson were starting to show some interest, and he had a visit coming up there. And Rule and them were like, well, if you're not going to sign with us, we're not going to let you go visit TCU, where you'll probably sign if you don't sign here right now. And so they deleted the graphic. We just pretended like it never happened, basically. He went and visited TCU, and he ended up signing with TCU, and 4 years later, he ends up winning a Thorpe Award. So that was kind of how all that unfolded, and people were like, he's from Waco? How did he not end up at Baylor? That's why. He was always kind of destined because of LaDainian Tomlinson, like you said. Great young man. Yeah, he was a little bit undersized compared to everybody who's looking for the 6'1" safety and things like that, but he won the freaking Thorpe Award. So throw all that crap out the window, man, with some guys.
I asked him, I remember talking to him his junior year and saying, you're going to start going to camps, and you're going to start getting offers, and these things are happening. What is choice number one? Not knowing that he was going to say TCU, but that's what I thought, but you never know. He could have been like, I really have always wanted to go to USC. I don't know. Who knows? I didn't know the kid all that well, just from, doing his games. And he said, no, TCU. I said, okay, what's choice two? And then he paused and he said, anybody who offers me if TCU wound up not doing it. And I said, do you feel confident in getting a TCU offer? He goes, yes. And I said, well, you're a pretty confident guy. He said, yes, that's true. And he's a very confident player. He always has been. And he did. I saw his tweet last night. He said it was, quote, I done manifested this. And he really did. You think about holding out as long as you could. We have all seen kids get kind of desperate towards the end, and you have to take that offer, and it makes it really hard. Then they usually wind up transferring because they're in that spot where I was waiting for that one offer. It never came in. I just didn't really want to go to these other places, and that was my first choice, and it's hard when you have that in your head. He sat there and played the whole process out and let it come to him, and really did bet on himself. And then every step of the way, I get, because of his size, that he could have doubters, but all you have to do is watch the film and go, the size doesn't matter, because he's so fast and so quick and instinctive that, what does it matter?
Pop on a senior highlight tape. Pop on a senior highlight tape. He's playing 6A football in the state of Texas, getting his team to the state championship game, and they had a bad showing in that state championship game. But beyond that, it was an incredible year. He was a big part of the reason why. Had so many, they're about to lose this game. Here's Travius with a scoop and score for 65 yards out of nowhere. They're about to lose this game. Here's Travius with an interception. He was incredible. So point being, we saw him. We're not surprised by this. We wouldn't have predicted that he was going to go win a Thorpe Award, but none of us up here are surprised in the slightest that Travius Hodges Tomlinson went out and had himself a hell of a college career. So happy for him, thrilled for him, and for Midway football as well, where he played his high school ball.
So you had Tanner Mordecai, who's gotten a lot of awards the last 3 or 4 years, the quarterback at Oklahoma, then SMU. He was on the same team at Midway. Now, one question by 365 Sports. I'm not sure if this is Levi and or Emery, about the size of Travius Hodges Tomlinson and Thomas Everett, former Baylor All-American Thorpe winner, played in the NFL, Buccaneers, Cowboys. Both 5'9". Everett was probably about 6 to 8 pounds thicker. as far as maybe a little bit more bulky. Thomas Everett, incredible player. Not a Hall of Famer in the NFL, but a great player. Of course, drafted out of college by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now back to
Who's
this
faster?
one. Huh?
Who's faster?
Man, I tell you what. I think it'd be hard. I don't know. I would think maybe Travius a slight tick faster. Thomas listens to this show. Thomas, let me know. Text me. He does. He listens to our show. He loves our show. So does former Baylor running back and receiver David Mims from Dangerfield. All right, tight end award, John Mackey. Brock Bowers, young man from Georgia. I thought Michael Mayer, at Notre Dame might get this. But this is not to complain about the winners because there's only 3 or 4 probably in this conversation.
This was a two-man race between the two of them. But if you watch Brock Bowers this year, he is not like he is. Sometimes you look at him and that's a stereotypical tight end thing that he does. And then there's all these things that just outside the norm. I mean, a lot of teams run that little tight end around.
Yeah.
They run it like Baylor runs it at the goal line. Georgia ran it at the 22-yard line, and Brock Bowers had a 78-yard touchdown run. You know, that's how he's a little bit different.
He's super crazy athletic and explosive and all that. I mean, I think, you could have gone the other direction and been fine with that. I don't think this was one where it's like, this guy's the guy, and if he's not the guy, then the other guy got screwed, or this guy's the guy, and if he's not the guy, then this award's bunk. No. I mean, you had to pick somebody, and I certainly think there's a great case that can be made for Brock Bowers, and you can also go a different route if you so choose, like you said. But I think that I'll say this: I'm not surprised that Brock Bowers won that award. I'm not surprised in the slightest. But yeah, I see where there's a mayor from Notre Dame could have been a great selection as well.
All right, so that's that one. The Davey O'Brien Award, Max Duggan. He's in New York City tomorrow. Now he's in New York City right now.
Let's also say Brock Bowers is on undefeated #1 Georgia and a huge part of what they do. So that's probably working in his favor as well.
There's one more sheet, the one before that, Garrett. We're still on the first one, I believe. The Davey O'Brien Award, Max Duggan wins that award. The Maxwell Award, Caleb Williams. And now there's a note. The last 8 Maxwell Award winners, which is for the best player in college football, has won the Heisman Trophy. So Williams wins that one, the Davey O'Brien, which is, by the way, a former TCU star. And that goes to Max Duggan at TCU. Now let's go over, there's a lot more to get to. The next level, Biletnikoff Award. Jalen Hyatt, Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, that was an award that you could have gone a different direction. All these you can, but I know there's definitely a case for Marvin Harrison Jr. That was a name that you heard a lot, but I thought Jalen Hyatt had a super special year. I mean, the Alabama game was like, you talk about like your Heisman moment. I mean, that was that, and more. That was his Biletnikoff moment, I think. And yeah, he put up crazy numbers. Part of me was kind of side-eyeing it a little bit just because of the offense that he's in, and I'm only giving payback to all the voters from about 10 years ago when there were Baylor receivers that were lighting up. It's like, oh, that's that gimmicky offense. And now it's like the one that everybody wants to embrace and hug on and act like it's the coolest thing ever. But I didn't knock Jalen Hyatt for that in my mind at all.
Still got to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so he went out and had himself an incredible year. I mean, obviously Tennessee faded down the stretch with a couple losses that really derailed their bigger picture goals, but he was a terrific player. And I don't think that's like, oh my gosh, Marvin Harrison got snubbed. I don't think that at all. I think that, you could have been right either way, and certainly Hyatt was deserving.
I'll also make an argument in that offense that if you have 7 catches a game of an offense that's trying to run 90 plays and your 7 catches are that impactful, that it's even more impressive because they're trying to run as many plays as they can, and the ball's going all over the place. 2 or 3 different running backs can have, but we've seen it. Like big,
to me,
big
what
numbers.
Harrison's impressive part is he stepped up. Mm-hmm. We knew he was a great recruit, the lineage, history, whatever. He stepped up when Jigma Smith went out, and Ohio State had some actual issues. Plus who went to the NFL, and he was the alpha. Again, it's hard to vote for these. It's not like I don't just sit there and go, oh, this is these 3. It's hard to do it. And so, again, I saw some bluster about the Biletnikoff Award. We've already done the John Mackey Award. Go ahead,
I mean,
Craig.
there's going to be bluster over every award because
there
you got
is, because these are elite players. Yeah.
I mean, just pick who you pick, and as long as it's not an egregious slight of somebody or some homer pick, then I don't think that you really have to feel bad about picking this guy over that guy. And in this case, Marvin Harrison versus Jalen Hyatt in particular. Going back to the Mackey, I know there's a lot of arguments about Brock Bowers isn't really a true tight end, and you can have that argument. But he's listed in that category, is he not? That's not what he's listed as on the roster. So, you can go back and forth on every award. You can have Duggan versus Caleb in this category or whatever. But, yeah, Jalen Hyatt was deserving of the Biletnikoff. That's silly.
All right, back to the graphic. We mentioned the Mackey Award. It's already the Outland and Remington Award. Olubatimi from Michigan. He's a transfer from Virginia. And I tell you what, when I was watching them play against Ohio State and I was watching the game against Purdue, this guy is phenomenal. And he was a transfer and ends up winning those 2 elite offensive lineman awards.
Yeah, and I kind of felt the best offensive line, in my opinion, this year was Michigan. I know, and I'm not alone in that. So it's very fitting that those awards come from that offensive line because they are old school road graders all the way across.
Yeah, they were fantastic. He was probably, I guess, I don't know. I hadn't thought about this category at all, but if there was a transfer of the year, I think
They have one.
Oh, do they have the transfer of the year?
We'll show you that in a minute. Yep.
I had no idea they actually have that award. But, okay. Then, he would be one of your finalists for that and certainly have a very strong argument. But, yeah, very deserving. Michigan's O-line. It's a big part of, what I kind of wonder about with TCU is how does, TCU hold up in the trenches? I mean, I know they got some big, tough guys of their own, but, it just feels like Michigan kind of plays that other level of that Big Ten style that I don't think by any means is, unbeatable or anything like that, but I do wonder if they're not going to be able to lean on TCU just a little bit, in the semifinals. We'll see, though, and Oluwatimi will be a great challenge for the Frogs and vice versa.
All right, so more of the list, 365 Sports. A lot of you making comments on it. Any questions you may have, and the text line is 254-339-1122, and also the chat room is firing away. Kicking awards and punting award. Luke Rosa, Christopher Dunn, had a huge year. Mooney from Michigan was a part of this. And I believe a kicker from out on the West Coast in the Pac-12 was one of the finalists. Christopher Dunn was huge. Adam Korsak from Rutgers. Ray Guy Award for the best punter in America. So special teams to me, I mean, you see a team that's messed up, a team that might have 3 games they could have won. Most likely one, they just may not be very good, but also their special teams might be dysfunctional. So I think those are huge awards. Now, one page alone for a guy that I thought, for the most part, did not have as dynamic a year as he had last year. In Will Anderson Jr., the Lombardi, the Bednarik, the Lombardi on there. There's a third award, I forget which. The Nagurski Award. Yeah. It was the Nagurski Award, excuse me. Will Anderson won all 3 of them. He's back-to-back winners on a couple of those, and he ended up with a huge year. I think I always have that in my head because he just seemed to be out of whack against Texas. He lined up off sides. He didn't play well in a couple of their bigger games compared to what we saw a year ago, but he ended up being probably a unanimous All-American before it's all said and done.
Will be a top 3 pick in the draft, more than likely, for depending on the teams that don't pick quarterbacks. You would assume the Texans are going to pick a quarterback at number 1. After that, I think there's a couple teams that right now, as the draft order would fall, are not going to pick quarterbacks. And Will Anderson is going to go. The Eagles are going to have a really high pick. If I would faint if he got past the Eagles, who have the
3rd, 4th, or 5th pick. Right?
Yeah, the Lions, or who they have somebody's pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very good player. I mean, he still can potentially win the Lot Impact Trophy as well. So it's been a busy week for Will Anderson, and he's going to have a really cool shelf in whatever home office he eventually has, or sports room or whatever. He's going to, just from this year alone, but much less the last couple of years, have a cool looking couple of shelves in that area that he can look back fondly on, and wouldn't surprise me to see him add some hardware from his NFL days coming up as well.
So here are some of the unique awards that they had last night. Drake May, Freshman of the Year. Bo Nix, Most Exciting Player. That one seems to kind of almost be made up. I'm not saying he didn't earn that.
Yeah.
Transfer of the Year. Now you have Caleb Williams winning the Maxwell, and you have, there's another, and the kid from Michigan, the offensive lineman, the young man. Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback from Washington, is the transfer of the year. And in this day and age, there might have been not much of, even a thought that there was that award. But because of the transfer portal, now more than ever before.
Here's why I say Michael Penix over Caleb Williams. Everybody knew that Caleb Williams was going to play well this year, so it's not as much of a surprise. If you hadn't seen Michael Penix play in the year at Indiana, and he's coming off an injury as well, and Washington was so moribund, going in this year with a new coach and all this, and oh, great, Michael Penix is going to be there. Well, that could be interesting. I thought that elevated them from just to a bowl team. And he elevated them to a team that was in contention for the Pac-12 title pretty much until the end.
Yep, and, of course, they'll play Texas in the Alamo Bowl, Valero Alamo Bowl down in San Antonio.
Garrett, can you put that back up, please? Okay, thanks. When did the Transfer of the Year award start?
I've never heard of it.
And the most exciting player, I don't remember that one.
Never heard of that either.
Missed that one, but I mean, I'm not complaining.
There usually is a freshman All-American team, but I'd never seen the Freshman of the Year, and so there were like 20-some awards handed out last night.
I mean, Drake May, that makes sense. The most exciting thing, I could, Bo Nix definitely fits that category. Transfer of the Year, I mean, you guys just kind of broke it down. Although I will say, on Caleb Williams, I don't want to fault guys just because, they've already, proven something. You know what I mean? He won the Heisman last year. He doesn't have to win it this year. He already won it. It's we knew Caleb Williams was going to be good, but still, if he was the best transfer, he's the best transfer. But I'm fine with giving it to Penix. Oluwatimi would have been another guy, and there's others as well. Michael Penix had a fantastic year for the Huskies. A lot of Indiana football fans watched him and thought he was probably the best player they had, but had no idea what was in store for him. And I'm sure would love to have him back, but he went on to bigger and better things and did really well for himself. And now he's coming back, and that's going to give a lot of, faith and hope and firepower for Washington heading into this offseason to build on. I love that he's coming back, and I love that he's being acknowledged because he was very deserving of that award.
So those are the awards from last night, the 5 through 10 in the Heisman Trophy, and then the various awards, again, handed out last night on ESPN. So somebody just asked a question about the Heisman voting. Again, the deadline, I believe, was Monday at 5 Central, Eastern. I don't remember the time. But then they announced the finalists or those who will be invited to New York City a little bit later on that night, or even may have been on Tuesday. Our guest lineup real quickly. It's not very much today. Grayson Grunhafer at 3:45. Taylor McCark, ESPN, has a Division II game tomorrow. And then Paul Catalina's top 5. Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports was going to join us, but then all of a sudden got an assignment for a TV hit at 4, so we're trying to reschedule that. We will try to see. Update on the World Cup. The Netherlands and Argentina are in extra time. The Netherlands scored, I think, at the very beginning of extra time to tie it at 2. And now,
no, at the very end of the
90-minute
bonus
mark.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, they scored.
And now
I don't know how much time they had because
it was 90 minutes and something. Yeah. It was not it was 90 minutes, 53 seconds, whatever it was. But they're still playing right now. And earlier today, Brazil was beaten by Croatia in one of the other elimination games to get to the semifinals. All right, let's take a break here. We will come back again. The chat room, thank you for all the questions, your comments, your questions, your opinions on a lot of what we've talked about today. In fact, I know this is, I want you to tell me, who would your top 3 votes be for the Heisman Trophy? We might even do our own little calculation based on what we see on the chat room. 1, 2, and 3. You don't even have to give us why. 1, 2, and 3. And remember, it's the best player in college football. Sometimes people look at it differently. This is 365 Sports. I had a conversation today with Dr. Rob Maxey, Ideal MRI, idealmri.com online. They're in the Central Texas marketplace off of I-35 on the access road of Loop 340 and Highway 6 in Waco. I called him, just wanted to check in with him, see how things were going. He said last month was one of their best. In fact, I thought he said their best month ever. And people are learning more and more about what they do. 2 things. Find out what is wrong with you when it comes to pain in your body. And number 2, save you a ton of money because nothing will ever be more than $497. The average MRI is $1,100 or more. So muscle, ligament, something that is in pain. Your doctor wants to better look at it. Maybe you've already had an x-ray that didn't work, that didn't give them what they needed. They need to see more evidence. You'll get it. State-of-the-art technology MRI machine. I've been in it myself 3 or 4 times, and the experience has been fantastic, and I'm usually a little bit leery of getting inside that tube. The techs and specialists are amazing. Dr. Rob Maxey and the partners are amazing. What they have is something to help find out what is hurting you and also saving you tons, hundreds, maybe even $1,000 or so at idealmri.com.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Carr Motors, we are people you can count on.
Texas Farm Bureau Insurance has protected fellow Texans with auto, home, health, and life insurance since 1952. With more than 260,000 square miles of land and 27 million people, that's a lot to cover. Whether you're wrangling cattle or wrangling kids, we're proud to protect Texans in all Texan ways of life.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
One note that came down yesterday evening, Jason Garrett has been working for NBC and due to Notre Dame football and television. His name was tied into at least possibly more than just a target for Stanford. It seemed to make sense. We discussed it a little bit yesterday, but yesterday he put out a note that he's pretty happy with where he is. He appreciates the attention, but it appears as if his name, is out of that running at Stanford.
Well, I wonder if that means it's Troy Taylor now from Sacramento State.
Sacramento State is about to play a game against Incarnate Word. In fact, tonight at 9:30 in the division or the FCS championship playoffs.
Do you have anything else, Bo?
No.
Oh, okay. I think that he was an interesting candidate for Stanford. He made a lot of sense because of just his background and the fact that it's not a job where it's like you got to win 10 games and you got to beat Alabama to keep your job after 2-3 years. You know, it's not necessarily as high stakes, but still a very, historic program. There are a lot of questions about Stanford and just the want to at this point, I think, and just sort of where the Pac-12 lies in the grand scheme of things, and therefore where Stanford lies in the grand scheme of things. You know, that was a team that during Big Ten expansion talk, there was the thought that, okay, if you're grabbing the LA schools, who else could you potentially grab? And Stanford was always one of those sort of interesting choices because of their academics and because of, their just profile as a university. That's attractive, especially to a conference like the Big Ten. And, as Shaw proved at one point in time, as Harbaugh proved before that. I mean, there are guys who can win at Stanford. They've had some great players over the years. But, yeah, I mean, they definitely have, lost steam over the end of the Shaw tenure. And now I think, Troy Taylor would be a great hire for them. But Jason Garrett made sense, not a huge splash, but a named guy. It's not somebody that I would necessarily get excited about, but I don't know how much of a fervor there is for Stanford football. Yeah. So, is that really that big of a deal? That was kind of where I was coming from with this. But, he dropped a tweet last night and said that he was not going to be in the running any longer, but he appreciated the opportunity. And that was an interesting way to kind of put that out there, but it was good to hear it from the horse's mouth and go ahead and move on to Troy Taylor or whoever this third candidate may be that I haven't seen mentioned by name, but is being referred to, because if you look at sort of the reaction to Jason Garrett's tweet, your Feldmans and those types of guys, I found it kind of weird he was one of the finalists along with Troy Taylor, and then they never said who the other person could be. So, yeah, I'm curious as if there's a third wheel that, is going to be a surprise of some sort. But, yeah, Garrett staying in the booth, I mean, that's a less stress-free job by a large margin. And doing Notre Dame football, I'm sure, is a fun time, whether people enjoy it or not. I know there's mixed reviews on him as a commentator, but not shocked. I mean, that's a better gig as far as the stress levels go.
On the chat room, some of you gave us your 3 Heisman picks. Paxton, Max Duggan, Caleb Williams, Bijan Robinson. Cougar Tracks, Caleb Williams, Max Duggan, and said Jaron Hall. Wet Blanket, Max Duggan, Caleb Williams, Stetson Bennett. Clint, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., Bijan. Rich, Max Duggan, Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud. So those are some of, I think that might have been the last one of about 6 or 8 of you. And then also, let's see, Nerf, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., Bijan Robinson, but I think Caleb is by far the best player in the nation.
I'd be shocked if we don't hear his name called tomorrow night. I really would. And I think if it's not him, it has to be Max Duggan, right? I don't see C.J. Stroud pulling the votes or, gosh, I keep forgetting Stetson Bennett, gosh.
The defending national champion at quarterback?
Yeah, but the guy who everybody doesn't feel should be in New York other than Georgia fans, yeah, that guy, yeah. No, I would be shocked, even if there is this vote splitting because of regions and, all of that, like I said earlier, that will be revealed once the winner's revealed. Yeah, I think it's going to be Caleb Williams. I would go Max Duggan, too. And then on 3, people throwing in Bijan and Michael Penix and non-finalists, I think that's fun. Just for now, I'll just settle on, gosh, I don't know. I would really, I don't have a vote, so I didn't have to go and do this. But I was always Caleb and Max. Those were my guys. And beyond that, I would have to have a vote to want to waste the time to figure out the final third. But I'll try and think of it here.
Both of them had gutted gutted it out in the losses they had in the championship games on Friday night. Caleb Williams, Utah eventually pulled away with a pretty easy win, and then, of course, we know what Duggan did, every ounce of energy. In fact, enough to where Sonny Dykes did not want to give him the ball in either one of those last two plays at the goal line, which I hated that, but Sonny Dykes has done a pretty damn good job with that TCU football team leading up until that time.
Well, I told you when you asked me about what I thought. Mine were Caleb, Max, and look, I like Blake Corum. I really do. I like Blake Corum. I know that he missed the last two games, but I have a lot of love for a workhorse back, and that's what he was, and he was a star. Paxton, please don't come for me on Bijan. Bijan is up there. Like if I actually did have a vote, I would have really had to think about it.
Who would you have voted for?
I would have voted Corum over Bijan, and Bijan losing my vote in the top three would only have been because of not him, but the coaching staff forgetting he existed, which is all of a sudden, it wasn't at the end of the year, but the last two coaches at Texas have forgotten about running backs. And when you walk into the stadium every day, there's Earl Campbell out there. You would think you would remember it.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah,
there's a lot of different directions you could go with that third spot. I don't think you can really be wrong. I mean, if you say it's Michael Penix, then, hey, there's a great case we made. If you think it's Blake Corum, there's a great case we made. If you think it's Bijan, Stetson Bennett, Jalen Hyatt, whoever you want to throw in that third spot, it ultimately – it does matter in that it's a great honor for those guys. The more votes they get, I finished third in the Heisman voting versus finishing, outside of even mentioned. So that is important in that way. But yeah, I think that's kind of that wild card spot that everybody's going to have a sort of a different flavor there. But I think that the top two are pretty clear, and that's what I think it'll come down to tomorrow night.
All right, there's one more coaching note, and this is from earlier. Paul, you shared this with me, that Bobby Petrino is, according to Chris Hummer, and I think there have been other reports about this as well, as a candidate for the offensive coordinator's job at A&M. We'll be interviewing, according to Chris Hummer, at some point in the next days, or let's say day 2 or 3. Paul, you mentioned that, what did you say this is, Jimbo?
It feels spiteful. Oh, you guys want me to hire an offensive coordinator? Oh, how about a guy that literally no one likes? No one's excited when Bobby Petrino comes to town. And
if he turns that offense around, they'll love him.
Yeah, I do think he needs to. But he also, what kind of offense is Bobby Petrino running that's going to make them, like, part of the thing is not, it doesn't need to be somebody who runs an offense like Jimbo. Jimbo needs to pick an offense that his players can run. So if it's still going to be an offense that's too complicated for people to get, then that's going to be a problem. And look, I get that Jimbo is not doing this by popularity. The defensive coordinator there is DJ Durkin, a guy who was fired at Maryland after the death of a player and comes with a lot of controversy. I get he's not trying to win a pageant here, but I do think he needs to be a little careful in bringing somebody like Bobby Petrino in to the A&M fans, because tell me what Bobby Petrino has really done outside of Coach Lamar Jackson in college football that should get you excited about Bobby Petrino.
Did a good job with Missouri State.
Yeah.
Most people probably wouldn't be able to. But yeah, to your point, most people don't even realize where he's been the last few years probably, yeah. He's
had it's not quite, but like 20 different jobs, some of them at the same place with promotions, coached in the NFL with the Falcons and left in the middle of the night. And then also with the Jaguars as a quarterback and offensive coordinator as well. He head coach at Arkansas. We know that blew up on him. Was out a year. Western Kentucky for a year. Louisville for 5. And then Missouri State the last 3.
So any truth that Jimbo's going to hire Art Briles as a special teams coordinator so we can just say, hey, let's have the most toxic coaching staff of all time. Like, if we're going to do it, let's go for it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Quite frankly, the Durkin thing, that just kind of got...
Let me tell you something. If you were going to, if you were going to do an offensive coordinator, you're going to pick between those two, you would pick Briles.
Yeah.
If you were going to hire a guy specifically to be offensive coordinator, knowing that there would be blowback from whoever... And would you be able to weather the storm?
But Craig, to your point, though.
Yeah, like he's like, I don't know, man. I feel like A&M says and acts as though they stand for a certain type of thing and a certain type of character, right? Especially like leaning on the military side of the university. And then, it's one thing to go out and, I guess, hire DJ Durkin, but to follow that up with potentially hiring Bobby Petrino, it's like, I don't know, like this doesn't seem like what I would consider A&M standards. But this is... your standards, I guess, when you realize, hey, we're in the SEC and it can get sleazy. And, if you want to compete, that sometimes you've got to do things that maybe are against, your normal character. I mean, I get it's college football, so there's sleaziness everywhere you look. But, like, having Durkin and Petrino on the same staff, I just feel like that's like an extra level of kind of dipping in the dirt that is just totally unnecessary. And it does sort of feel as though Jimbo's saying, like, I saw somebody, and I can't recall who it was because there's, thousands of tweets that you see throughout the day, but somebody had like the George Costanza Seinfeld gif of, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. And like, that's kind of what Jimbo's saying, like to your point of like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. You want me to hire an offensive coordinator? All right, I'll get the most toxic name I can think of, basically. And look, Petrino, like credentials, like football wise, okay, yeah, great football coach, but we have seen it is bigger than that. And he already did the Durkin thing, which some people still don't. That still doesn't sit well with them, and rightfully so, because that was just kind of like, like, yeah, it happened, bad thing, but whatever. But no, whatever. And, Petrino, that's been some time now, but still, there's still that ick that comes with him, too. So, I don't know, man. If I was an A&M fan, I would be kind of grossed out by just the growing accumulation of, shady history that he's compiling on that staff at the coordinator spots. But that's just me. And look, for pure football perspective, like, I get it, but I don't know. It just seems kind of toxic, I guess.
Let me update the World Cup. They're now still playing. It's in, the extra time? Is that right, Jack? It's Croatia, Netherlands and Argentina. There were three shots.
That was earlier today.
3 shots on goal, and there were 3 goals. I believe that's correct. And they continue. I guess they're in a break right now with Argentina with Croatia beating Brazil and Argentina right now, and the Netherlands continuing to go. Paxton asks, where did Deuce Vaughn end up? Like 15? They don't release anything after 10. And I would think because of how the voting goes, 3 points, 2 points, 1 point, I would think that vote tank almost runs dry. There might be 17, 18, I can't imagine, 20 players that have 1 or 2 votes total after 10. But after 10, there's not going to be many votes since there's only 900 votes. So there's a bunch of votes out there, but I would think most of them are done by the time they get to about number 10. Somebody asked about Army-Navy. We will have today Ahmad Bradshaw, who was on with us yesterday. We'll have that later in the show. We, on occasion, will do that on a Friday, but Army-Navy will have his interview sometime in the 5 o'clock hour, 2 o'clock on CBS. Tonight, football. Incarnate Word at Sacramento State. Interesting because G.J. Kinney's leaving, headed to Texas State. Could be his last game if they don't win. Sacramento State, that's the one,
Troy Taylor,
whose name had been brought up for Stanford. William and Mary and Montana State. They're playing at 9:15 on ESPN2. Samford, and North Dakota State at 6. And then tomorrow, Holy Cross and South Dakota State will play Saturday. Those are the FCS quarterfinal round games.
Samford, most famous alum.
Bobby Bowden.
That's damn right.
The Division III local ties, Mary Hardin-Baylor, UMHB, playing at North Central up in Illinois in the semifinals. Wartburg College and Mount Union in the other semifinal round game. We'll have Taylor McCarg at 4:30. He's doing that game between Shepherd and also the Colorado School of the Mines in the Division II semis. The other game is West Florida against Ferris State. We got to take a break here at the top of the hour. Much more to get to. They're now in penalty kicks. I'm sorry about that. They're in penalty kicks.
Our broadcast started over, so I've been waiting to get up and flip it back.
And if you couldn't tell, we are not soccer experts.
Not at all.
It's not what you signed up for if you were hoping for
I'm not a soccer expert,
coverage.
but I'm also smart enough to realize that because it is the World Cup, it's worth trying to put it out there as much as we can.
Sure.
All right, Alan Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Last week I went by to get my oil changed and I checked my tires, and I did get a couple of new tires. And I sat in the office with Ted Teague, who's the general manager, and we discussed almost the whole time we're in there. He loves this show. He watches this show. We appreciate that. And also on top of that, we talked about everything Baylor football to college football to NIL and much more. Alan Samuels right now, the new 2022 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Star with values of up to $6,250. First responders get an extra $500. The Big Finish sales event. Come see why Ram, wins continuously year after year after year the major awards when it comes to trucks. Also, that Grand Cherokee 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Limited, 2-row, 3-row, total values of $4,500 again for first responders. Allen Samuels, Dodge Chrysler, Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Howdy, Chet Garner here, professional guide, searching for bears in the wild. But not just any bears, oh no, a particular kind. With hundreds of thousands roaming freely in the wild, yet still hard to spot unless you know the signs. There they are, Baylor bears. If you're a bear enthusiast or even a bear yourself, join me and let's find some bears in the wild.
Join the expedition at baylor.edu/alumni.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your home for holiday favorites for parties or time with the family, with various specials available while supplies last in store or ordering by phone, including 8 to 10 pound half spiral hams at $4.15 a pound, 12 pound pit hams at $4.35 a pound, bone-in hams for $3.40 a pound, 14 to 16 pound whole raw turkeys at $2.85 a pound, and $4.80 a pound for 9 to 12 pound whole smoked turkeys, 6 to 8 pound mini pit hams for $5.99 a pound. Limit 4 of each item per customer. Call in advance to ensure availability or drop by Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Waco Custom Marketplace, your full-service butcher shop for customized orders or cuts of your favorite steaks or beef tenderloin or specially ordered prime rib roast. WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com, recruiting analyst, football analyst, co-host of the Bearcast with Craig, joins us on 365 Sports. Craig, you want to give us an update on the World Cup?
Sure. Argentina wins the shootout, so they are moving on to the next round, defeating the Netherlands 4-3 in the shootout. And, fun finish there. Glad we got to see it. We were kind of behind. That's why it was confusing when we were talking about it. I think it was confusing for us trying to figure out what was going on, but caught up and got to catch the last couple kicks. And so that's what you sign up for when you're watching games like this at this level. So, yeah, awesome win for Argentina that now goes and faces Croatia in the semifinal.
Grayson, thank you for being patient and joining us a little bit late. By the way, we had Dennis Dodd at 4. It's been pushed back, but I don't know, maybe not even today, working on that. Grayson, all right, so it seems to me, and I read your stuff on the premium section, it seems to me, is Baylor kind of in a little bit of a funk, a dry spell when it comes to recruiting? They lost a kid from Kansas. Kind of clarify where they are for this class that they're trying to sign in a couple of weeks.
Right. So I would say the first part of what you're kind of talking about with Calvin Clement, the big offensive lineman out of Kansas, he decided to flip his commitment to the Jayhawks. And, I mean, he's from Lawrence, so this makes a lot of sense. He visited Kansas a couple times unofficially during the season. He also visited Baylor during the season as well. But I think this was one of those decisions where it was more so thinking about staying closer to home while also seeing the fact that Kansas isn't Kansas anymore, if that makes sense. So it was kind of more, I think during the season they became more appealing to Calvin, and so it allowed him the opportunity to stay close to home. It's a bummer for Baylor, for sure, because he was a guy who was going to enroll early, a guy that they had they thought was going to be a really good player. I thought he was going to be a really good player as well. He was my second highest rated offensive lineman in this class behind Sean Tompkins, the big offensive lineman out of Georgia. So it's a big loss, but I would also tell you that now they have room, right? Now they have another spot available for them to go out and potentially land another prospect or go out and try to make up for losing Calvin Clement. And that's kind of what they're trying to do this weekend as the big offensive lineman out of BYU, Campbell Barrington, is taking an official visit this weekend. He was a freshman All-American in 2021. Then he dealt with injuries this past year and eventually just didn't quite live up to what he did his freshman year because he got replaced once he was injured, and then he kind of had to play all over the offensive line a little bit for BYU. But he's the guy that I know would fit in really nicely with what Baylor's trying to build up front. He'd give them another guy that could play left tackle or right tackle, which they absolutely need this cycle. And he's a guy who's older. So while losing Calvin is big because he's a young guy that you really like, you also need a guy that can come in and play next year. And that's what a guy like Campbell Barrington would be able to do for them a year from now. And also, his brother plays at BYU as well. So, there's some pretty good pedigree there. Campbell has a good relationship with Eric Mateos and, of course, Jeff Grimes. So a lot of positive signs trending in Baylor's direction there as he gets ready as he really arrives in Waco this weekend for his official visit.
Grace, I don't know if you know this about the Clements kid. He earlier in the year, Lance Leipold, in just a press conference when they asked him about getting recruits, he didn't mention him by name because he can't, but he said, we've got local kids and, a guy who would love to come to Kansas that are committed elsewhere because I can't tell them if we're going to be good or not. And he said we have to prove it on the field. So then here they go prove it on the field, and all of a sudden a local kid decommits from where he was and goes to Kansas. So Kansas getting good was all he was really waiting for, it feels like.
Yeah, and I mean, he's a Kansas legacy, right? So, I mean, it was going to be hard for Baylor to win that recruiting battle if Kansas was good. And Kansas showed, they're trending in the right direction. They got Lance Leipold to stay, which I think was also a huge concern, right? That he would go somewhere else and become a coach elsewhere. And then I don't think Calvin would have even considered them. So, yeah, I mean, good for Kansas. I think this is just one of those tricky situations where Baylor landed a guy who just happens to be in Lawrence, Kansas, as things are starting to turn in the right direction for that program.
What about the rest of it, Grayson? Do you feel like there's momentum there, or is there a little bit of a lack or question about kind of the mojo going on at the moment?
Right. So, I mean, I guess the other kind of question that we probably got to talk about is Lakeview Centennial defensive lineman Trey Wilson. He's kind of like a defensive end / outside linebacker jack type prospect. Had a really, really good senior year, and is a guy that's been committed to Baylor for a while. And really has loved Baylor throughout his process. But I will say during the season, he took an unofficial visit to TCU. He lives really close to there, so that's not really surprising. But as the season progressed, obviously Baylor had some ups and downs this year. TCU had a really good year. And so as things have progressed, TCU's continued to recruit him. And now they're actually getting him on an official visit this weekend, which is big news. And some news that I actually posted on the board earlier today. We kind of got signs of it earlier this week, but it finally was confirmed going into this weekend. So that's pretty big news there, I would say. We'll see what happens. Baylor is still, I think, in a good position there. But on the flip side, if you go on an official visit somewhere, it means there's clear interest. And so Trey definitely has clear interest in TCU, and we'll see if they're able to flip him. Outside of that, it's an official visit weekend, like I mentioned. So Caden Jenkins, Palmer Williams, and DJ Coleman, those are three guys that have been committed to Baylor for a while, but they were unable to take their official visit earlier in the process. And so they're taking their official visit right now this weekend, along with Campbell Barrington. So that's kind of where things are at right now. A lot of their prospects are getting ready to early enroll. I think I have 9 listed currently who are going to enroll early at Baylor. So now it's just a matter of, them signing on December 21st. And I think a lot of programs are still looking at some Baylor prospects. And so we'll see if they're able to hold on to the remainder of the class. So it's going to be a very interesting finish to this 2023 cycle, as well as obviously the transfer portal, which I'm sure we're going to talk about here in a minute.
Well, yeah, and my question to you on that, and also even the class, the incoming high school players, does the opening now at defensive coordinator make any difference whatsoever?
Yeah, I would say that it hasn't made a huge difference. I think most of the guys that I've talked to in this class, it's been pretty consistent that it was a shock, but also that we're still locked into Baylor. And I think, again, a big part of that is because Dave Aranda holds so much influence on the defensive side of the ball that I think most of these guys feel really comfortable with him being the defensive coordinator, essentially, being the defensive guru and the defensive mind that he is. I would also say, Ron Roberts was a solid recruiter. He wasn't an elite recruiter, and neither was Ronnie Wheat. So I don't think it's some massive loss as far as the prospects think. But it will be really interesting to see who they go out and try to land to be the defensive coordinator, because maybe that guy will have connections and be a recruiter who maybe grabs someone late, kind of like they did last cycle with Alfonso Allen. Maybe you're able to go out and find someone for the second signing period who fits what they're trying to do defensively. So I would say it hasn't made a huge difference, at least not up to this point.
Grayson, how many transfers do you expect them to add, but how many do they maybe need?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's one of those things where the more that I've looked at it, the more I'm sitting here going, okay, they need a guy at this position, this position, this position. And for me, I do think the number is somewhere around 5 or 6 is where I think they're going to end up landing. Now, the problem is I say that, but currently they don't have the roster spots to really do that. So there's going to have to be more attrition in order for that to occur. Also because you're bringing in a 2023 class that has quite a few prospects in it as well. So you got to make room for them and then make room for any transfers that you add at the end of the day. So we'll see if they can get more attrition, but I do think 5, 6 guys seems about right. They just have quite a few positions of need that I think they're trying to address. And based on the momentum of the portal, it definitely seems like they're actually being active and trying to address those positions, which also tells me that there's probably going to be more attrition coming. So just be ready for that. And not all attrition is bad attrition.
Do you think there's any chance that they are looking at some of these bevy of quarterbacks that have entered the transfer portal?
Not at this time. I really don't. I think that they might add a quarterback if Kyron Drones elects not to come back to Baylor, but I don't think it'll be someone who's necessarily going to challenge Blake Shapen for the starting quarterback spot. Just at this time, I'd be a little surprised by that, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. Maybe they find someone who's a diamond in the rough in the portal, and he ends up being more of a challenge than we expect. But at this point, I think it's probably going to be, or I'm expecting it to be someone more like a Luke Anthony type, who's maybe played a few years in college. You know what you're going to get from him. He can provide reliable depth to your quarterback room. But again, that's only if Kyron Drones decides that he's not going to come back, because I think still right now they would like that him return.
Last thing. Austin Novosad, obviously the gem of the entire class, with all due respect to anybody else. Is that in any way, shape, or form not 100%?
I think that it is still 100%, but I can tell you, and I've been saying this and been honest about this for a long time, schools aren't going to stop recruiting him, and schools haven't stopped recruiting him, and that's going to continue. So, but as long as he doesn't go on an official visit or anything like that, I think things are still good. And as of right now, he has nothing scheduled as far as an official visit goes. He's just going to let the process play out and then sign on December 21st and enroll in January, because he's an early enrollee. So that's kind of where things are at right now. That's the latest I have information-wise on him, but I can tell you that other schools are still communicating with him.
All right. Thank you, Grayson. Great stuff. Appreciate your time. Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com writer, recruiting analyst, football analyst, host of the Bearcast, and more. We're going to get Dennis Dodd. I just got a text from Dennis. We're going to go straight to him once Paul gets hooked up with him. And Craig, is that number, that 5 or 6 about, again, it's juggling the amount of scholarships right now, and they actually almost need people to enter the transfer portal.
No, they do. They need to cut some dead weight, quite frankly. And you hate to say it that way, but, you know, if we're going to be sitting here talking about NIL valuations and the money that this guy is being due, we're moving more towards, kind of the NFL style. So I think that, it's only obvious that roster management has to take place, and there's some perhaps missed evaluations from a year or two ago that you'd like to correct and get a better guy in there. So, there needs to be some more attrition.
Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports National, senior national writer for college football and much more for CBS Sports. We appreciate his time, Craig and Paul. And I'm David Smoak. Dennis, thanks for your time today. I know you got a crazy busy schedule. So does Brett Yormark just absolutely just give you a bunch of great gasoline and a light, a match and a fire almost weekly?
Well, he's delivering, I'll say that, both to the membership and to the media. Doubling down in Las Vegas this week is where I was, again, talking about expansion. And the only question was he talking specifically about Gonzaga? Was he talking about, football and expansion overall? So it doesn't seem like it's over yet.
Dennis, do you get the feeling when he talks about moving west, he's talking about teams, if it is football, would it be teams like a Boise State, a San Diego State, somebody like that? Or is he sending little vibes out to the Pac-12 teams that may or may not get disgruntled over the next year or so?
Well, since July, when USC and UCLA moved, or announced they were moving to the Big Ten, it's always been around those 4 corner schools: Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, and I don't think that's changed. But in general, he wants the Pacific time zone because he wants more games in that 4th window, which ESPN is dying for, but hasn't been able to resolve a contract with the Pac-12 yet. But more than that, for Brett Yormark in the Big 12, he just wants to, for revenue's sake, he wants to be coast to coast, and have teams in every time zone where he can shift around games. They can shift around games, and there hasn't really been, a conference like that. You guys remember the old Big East in about 2013 tried it, and it didn't work. It died as a football conference and kind of morphed into the American. But this is what he's trying to do. And it will put the Pac-12, if it hasn't already, at a distinct disadvantage.
Dennis, Yormark's been on the job for less than a year at this point, but certainly a bit different from what we got accustomed to with Bob Bowlesby. What are kind of the main differences that you notice, and do you feel like the change in sort of attitude do you see that being reflected in kind of the perception of the Big 12, or is that something that's going to take a bit longer?
Well, he's been on that job, 5 months, I think?
Yeah, officially, yeah.
So, July, August.
I think he's a guy who wants to reshape the whole conference. And he was so proud that he got Ashanti to sing the national anthem. Because I went, how did you get that? He goes, hey, I got some, and that's all he has to say. He was so proud that DJ Khaled, was texting or posting during the game on the Big 12 championship team. It's that kind of stuff. So sexier, cooler, younger, that's the kind of stuff he's talking about. Now, how that translates into revenue, I don't pretend to be an expert on that, but it does bring the demographic eyeballs. Everybody's looking for that, 18 to 39 demographic in order to sell their product. And right now, for him, that product is the Big 12 and those who advertise with it. So that's what he's trying to do. And I'll say it again. He has delivered in every way and shape possible to right now. I mean, that TV deal that he got done is moving bigger and bigger. I talked with some TV industry folks in Las Vegas just this week about that. And as I stated up front, it does put the Pac-12 at a disadvantage.
Dennis, I don't know if you heard about what Kleofkoff said as far as part of them waiting might have been because they knew about Deion in Colorado. When has a television deal ever been affected by who might be a head coach and might not even be there more than 1, 2, or 5 years?
It's not. I think he was just being a commissioner at that point and putting his best foot forward. I don't think it actually adds meaningful dollars to a TV deal that you've got Deion. And that, in that case, then what has Nick Saban and Kirby Smart and Jimbo Fisher and all those guys done to the SEC? I mean, that's still going to be value. It's put value in it in that those guys have won championships. Well, not Jimbo, but they've won championships, which makes it more desirable. Deion hasn't won a championship, and he's a media mogul. That's what I call him. He's more than a media figure. He's a media mogul. But I don't think that people are now going to fall all over themselves to start paying big money for the Pac-12 because Deion is in it. Is it a net win? Absolutely. It makes Colorado better, which makes the Pac-12 better. But I don't think it adds meaningful dollars to whatever deal they're trying.
Dennis, since the last time we've had you on, the playoff expansion happened. Brett Yormark even talked about, the Rose Bowl kind of standing in the way. Your thoughts on the brave new world for college football and kind of what awaits?
Yeah. Well, we're here, right? 2 more years. And I start to think about it. One thought is that every one of those group of 5 coaches can sell this now to every recruit. Hey, you can play, if you come here, if we're good enough, you can play for a championship. And they couldn't say that through the BCS, through the CFP, even though it had more access. Now, if you're one of those highest rated 6 conferences, or you get an at-large spot, you're going to be in. And what it has done, the 12-team playoff, is something that the game never embraced, and that was Cinderella. Cincinnati was, I don't know what the word is, a fluke to get in, a rarity, not a fluke, but a rarity to get. Tulane would have been in this year's the 12-team playoff. That's unconscionable for a program like that. That's incredible. So I think it does that. The access is going to be great. It's going to make the game better. The other thing I started thinking about this week is the structure is already there for 16. If you consider that, and look, all this assures right now is only 2 more years of the current structure. Then they've got a chance to tear the whole thing up and start all over again, which I think they will, because they're going to bid it out to different rights holders. But I think by then they might be of a mind to go to 16 because that first round of games that have to be played are 4 games over 2 days, approximately 12 days after the conference championship game. Okay, you double that to 8 because that would then be half the field. 16, you have 4 games one day, 4 games the next, or maybe spread it out over 3. I don't know. But right then you get half the field eliminated and get rid of concerns or lessen concerns about the fact that these teams. Some of these teams are going to be playing NFL season 17 games. Because think about this, those 4 8 losers, and you're cutting the field in half that first weekend possibly, that's their bowl game. That's a bowl game they will be playing, so that's not an extra game. So then you're really starting with an 18 playoff in the next round, which we're going to pretty soon, in 24 after the first round. So I would really start thinking seriously about a 16-team playoff coming.
Man, people are already riled up about 12 and it hadn't even happened yet, and I can only imagine the conversations around 16. I mean, Dennis, there's money flying. There's no doubt about that. I feel like college football is a super hot product right now, and I think the TV ratings are reflecting that, and we haven't even reached the point where there should be even further interest because of a thing like the playoffs. But is there any sort of a ceiling that you see amongst college football leaders right now about being at least a little bit hesitant about biting off more they can chew? Is there any sort of cap on too much greed, or is that just not even a thought for most people?
Well, the biggest pressure on the whole thing, the pressure point is the players. And, sooner or later, and it may be with the new contract in the playoffs, it may be when all these media rights deals are settled. Some of it's going to have to go in straight up whatever, pay for play, collective bargaining, whatever. Because these two things can both be true. Players have never had it better in terms of health, welfare, and safety, in terms of earning ability, in terms of straight up compensation with NIL. But when I heard a story over the weekend, and it was public, as Rick Neuheisel on Sirius, he was telling an anecdote about when he was at USC and Adidas had the apparel contract. And apparently within that contract, because he would check for players that had spats, they had their tape on their shoes spatted up. Their contract read, you could only have 5 players that were injured that could use tape to cover up the Adidas logo. There's a couple of things there. Forget about players being human billboards for a larger purpose, for profit for the university. What if they had a 6th injured player or a 7th or 8th? He couldn't spat his shoes. So it's that kind of stuff where they're being used as kind of these indentured, I don't want to say servants, but indentured employees, where they're going to have to get paid sooner or later. And I had a Power 5 commissioner, a former Power 5 AD come up to me Tuesday night at the National Football Foundation dinner in Las Vegas, and out of nowhere said, you got to be collective bargaining. And I think a lot of administrators feel that way. Some of them are saying it. Some know it. Some are even embracing it. But that's coming. When you're going to sign at least a playoff contract, expanded playoff contract with $1.6 billion, think of what $200 million is out of that. I did the math. I think I came up with that if you just pay the playoff participants, you pay them $35,000. But I think that's coming. And I think the first conference that takes a part of that media right and dedicates it to the players as sort of in a partnership, whatever you want to call it, collective bargaining, whatever, is going to have a huge recruiting event. Can you imagine if the Big 12 does that?
Oh.
Let's say if it cuts out $50 million, which they could obviously afford, and starts giving that to just their players. Everybody would have to fall in line real quick. It may be as simple as that, but it's coming. They're going to be paid. They're already paid with NIL, but they're going to be paid more.
Is the transfer portal, was that one of the biggest stories this week? Just again, that it's been reloaded, or is that now almost ho-hum? Here we go again.
This week, it's been, let's see.
Well, no, I mean, it's been a topic. It's been a topic forever, but this week there's like over 1,000.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Monday's a new date on the calendar, portal day, the free agency day. I never expected that amount of players to jump in. I guess I was naive. And the number of quarterbacks right away that drew the most attention. But this is going to happen now. It actually hasn't reined in a little, because in the first year, there were no windows. Everybody just kind of did what they wanted. Now we've got a window from what was Monday, December 5th to, I think, the day after the championship game on January 8th. And then there was another one from May 1st to May 15th. So that at least there's some sense built up around the free agency. So that, and within that is the the enticement of players with NIL bids, and which is, by the way, completely legal as far as I can see, because all that stuff that used to be underground could be prosecuted by the NCAA. Right now, they don't want anything to do with it. They're trying to do it, but it's called impermissible. What's the word? Impermissible, not benefits. Impermissible content. And these schools are flat out calling up players and trying to get them to transfer, which is legal, with the promise of NIL money, which is quasi-legal. And it's all over the place. I mean, you just hear it. You just hear those sort of stories about guys being offered millions of dollars or this and that to go. You heard it with with Lincoln Riley and Jordan Anderson, the receiver in Pittsburgh. Nothing was ever proven, but I think you're going to see more of that.
I had a group of 5 coach earlier this week text me and said that every day he has to fight off about 3 to 5 players getting offers every day, especially this week, getting offers to move elsewhere. And he said sometimes the figures would blow your mind, and you can't trace it. You would think text messages or whatever, but I guess everybody's just smart enough not to be that dumb, right? Or hopefully, if that's the case. But it is a new world, Dennis, from what you and I grew up, and Paul and Craig, who were younger than us, no question. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
All right, man.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Appreciate it. Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, with us on 365 Sports.
Yeah, it's super, super interesting stuff there. I love that Brett Yormark gives content. I think that the biggest difference between Brett Yormark and Bob Bowlesby is Brett Yormark he doesn't come from college athletics. So he doesn't have to worry about making anybody mad that he worked with 10 years ago, that he has a relationship with, and getting those calls. He can just go and set out on his way. I remember when I was at the NFL Hall of Fame asking Jerry Jones about his first year as an owner and a couple years where he was doing things. I said, did you decide that, since you hadn't done this, you were just going to challenge convention? He's like, look, I was trying to make the money back for having bought the team. I didn't have time to stop and ask if the NFL liked that I made my own beverage and apparel deals. Like, I was just going to do it and then find out why later on. And I think that Brett Yormark's kind of doing that right here, is where, Bob Bowlesby was always very cautious about everything he said because he'd been in college athletics for so long. He was part of the machine, and so his responses were always like, well, overall, and he's a very intelligent person, but sometimes I think that was not a detriment, but like he thought too much about things and didn't react.
I don't want to pretend like Brett Yormark's some savior. No. We don't know nearly enough about him just yet, but he is a fresh step in the right direction, I think, for the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12 was totally lacking, I feel like, in confidence and oomph and authority. And not to say Bob Bowlesby wasn't doing his job, but I just don't know how much he was eyeing the marketing side of things and how much they really were falling behind the times, kind of in the public eye, in comparison to the SEC, in comparison to, the big push from the Big Ten. You look at just the gobs of money being thrown around by the networks involved, not just on the TV deals, but promotion. It's insane. And the Big 12 didn't really have its own promotion. You had, an analyst here or there, but kind of an afterthought, quite frankly, if it wasn't OU or Texas involved. And even with OU being involved, once the SEC thing was announced, it's like they were automatically treated like an SEC team rather than a Big 12 team. And so, to see TCU jump up and do what they're doing, K-State as well, if they could go get a win over Bama, I don't care if Bama's entire too deep is all backups. Still going to say beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl 30 years from now in the media guide, right? So, go out, have a successful bowl season, go out and have successful signing days. Obviously, there's, still a large gap. They're I'm not under the illusion that they're going to compete head-to-head with the SEC or the Big Ten or like that, but I do feel like it was sort of treated like it was some far-off, distant class, and I don't feel that way at all. I mean, maybe smaller, now in a little bit of peril because they're losing 2 of their biggest brands, but totally not empty in any regard. And so I think Brett Yormark's a great marketer and a guy with a lot of confidence, and he's going to go and put as much polish on this thing as he can. And I think last weekend was a great step towards that. And I like that he's kind of rattling cages, and I like that there were some people I don't know about that. Who's this guy? I like that because for the longest time, they knew who that guy was in charge of the Big 12. He was one of them. And they kind of knew how that was going to work. And now they're a little bit uncertain about this Yormark guy and kind of his new ways. And so I'm fascinated to see how he can continue to try to figure out ways to generate revenue and figure out ways to continue evolving this conference. But yeah, I feel like it's brought a nice fresh coat of paint to what was a very sort of aging starting to become quite dull sort of landscape in the Big 12.
All right, so we continue thinking that Dennis Doty found a way. He had to do a hit with TV for CBS and CBS Sports, so we appreciate his time. But we have Taylor McCart coming around the corner to get into the Heisman Trophy weekend and more.
How do you feel about a 16-team playoff?
I almost am numb.
That's where
to
it gets silly.
I'm
right?
really almost numb to it.
Yeah.
Here's what I want. I want more college football. I'm okay with that. I'm kind of trying to wrap, as someone my age or not, I'm trying to wrap my hands around all of what we see. I wonder when there's going to be some sort of collision course, as we spoke earlier. Remember with our guest from I guess it was on3.com with the transfer portal, the NIL, it just seemed like everything's a free for all, and it probably is what happened. It's almost like when Berlin, the wall came down, right? You just kind of this freeing thing. I'm not trying to use it. That was, we understand, a much bigger deal, but it's like it is all but wide open, and it's. I'm not complaining about it. I just wish that I would understand what's the end game. And is it going to be a year from now, 2 years from now? Is this oversight thing, whatever they're doing, this transformational committee, are they going to do anything about it? I saw Nicole Auerbach the other day have a story about it, and like 2 or 3 things they're going to suggest, and I don't remember any of it had anything to do with NIL or the transfer portal. It had everything to do with other things that are out there, including who may run college football at some point. When we come back, Taylor McCarg, ESPN, he has that Division II semifinal game this weekend. His thoughts about doing that game, his thoughts about the Army-Navy game, his thoughts about the Heisman Trophy, and much more. And this is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco. Hey, Hidden Gem, I've got an ugly sweater Christmas party I have to go to tonight. Don't roll your eyes. It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I've got to stop by and get provisions, so to speak, for the party. Well, I'll go to Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Best selection of locally crafted bourbons, best selection of craft beer, and those holiday beers, which is what I'm going to bring to the party. And just great customer service, a speedy drive-through window, everything you need. And look, if I'm at the party they don't have, I forgot to get something or we want to get something, I can just hit up DoorDash, and Riverbend Liquor and Wine can send me the stuff via DoorDash. So fantastic. Everything's great. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Did you know Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco is open to the public? Next time you're in town for a Baylor athletic event or you're in town for tourism, take advantage of their day passes for $10 a piece or the weekend for $30. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers 40 group exercise classes, including indoor cycling and yoga, boot camp, and bar. New free weights, weight machines, TRX rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, new elliptical machines, and a spacious weight room floor. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alec Botch, where you will be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed, kids club, 16 tennis courts and 8 pickleball courts, and youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons available. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit wacotennis.com or visit them next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why we take the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott in Conroe at 936-756-7717. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
In field goal range, though. Harris to the end zone. Franklin, touchdown!
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
You know, we saw the award shows this week, including a lot of them, the Hall of Fame Tuesday, some of the awards earlier in the week and then last night. But there are games, including the mother of all of them, the Army-Navy game tomorrow at 2 o'clock on CBS. But there are the Division II, the FCS, Division III having actual playoffs that it's taken the big boys forever to understand how to do it. Taylor McCarg will be at one of the games, the Division II semi, Shepherd and Colorado School of the Mines. Taylor, have you ever done a Division II or a sub-FCS type playoff game?
I have done a Division II bowl game. This was during COVID when they had it was a little bit different setup, but for the playoffs, no, I have not, and I'm fired up for this. I didn't know anything about Tyson Bagent, the quarterback for Shepherd, all-time leading touchdown passer, passed Case Keenum earlier this year, and he's got a Senior Bowl invite. He's on draft boards. Charles Davis with Fox, who I've known for a long time, he texted me and was like, hey, look, I need your notes on Tyson Bagent when the time comes because he's going to the Senior Bowl. So there are eyes on this game because of Tyson and also because of what obviously School of Mines has accomplished as well. But the environment here is incredible. These people are fired up, and we're excited to be here.
Colorado School of Mines, just real quick, I'm always surprised they've never changed their name. They just leaned right into it, even after all this time and expanded. But I like it's an old school name and an old school place. But Shepherd runs that wide open offense, so you're going to see a bunch of passing, aren't you?
It's the offense in this game is going to be phenomenal. I talked about Tyson Bagent a little bit. On the other side, a couple of receivers for Colorado School of Mines that are going to get a look in the NFL. They've got 2 guys that have gone over 1,000 yards receiving. Their running backs over 1,000 yards rushing. So we're expecting a shootout. I've got a late flight out of Denver tomorrow night after the game. So tell my wife if this turns into a shootout, I may not make it.
Taylor, have you too entered the transfer portal over the past week?
Oh, my God. I was just on a different radio show earlier and was talking about the transfer portal and NIL money, and if that would have impacted me. And I wish I could lie and say that it would have in the way of like a Frank Harris, but no, I don't think it really would have impacted me. But my God, it's hard to keep up with. I mean, it's unbelievable the names that are coming into the portal every week. And look, there's benefit to some people in some teams, in other ways, in other places there's not. But man, it makes anybody that covers the sport, it makes their lives harder trying to keep up with all of this.
So on the quarterback side of things, there's been a number of guys from Hudson Card to Brennan Armstrong. I mean, all
Spencer
Sanders. I mean, guy after guy after guy that has entered, and then even your Drake Mays who have said, "No, I'm staying where I am." Of the guys though that you have seen entered, who like popped off to you in terms of the quarterbacks? You're like, ooh, that one's going to be really interesting.
Well, Drake May would have been number one, and I got duped by that by the fake Twitter account. Put that out there. I think Hudson Card is interesting. Hudson Card is going to have a lot of suitors that are coming after him, and it wouldn't be the first time that a Texas quarterback transfers out and ends up having a nice career to end out their career. I think about Shane Buechele, did some nice things for SMU. Clearly was not going to be the guy at Texas, but that doesn't mean. A lot of times it takes guys getting away from a place like a Texas or a Notre Dame or a Florida where you have all the eyeballs on you. They can still be a really serviceable college quarterback. I think there's also some names, and some you just hear whispers, and so I won't say anything now, but there are some guys that are going to play their bowl game that rumors are starting to come out that there's going to be some more names hit the portal once bowl season ends. So this chaos, it's going to be – we have to live with this now until – I was going to say the NCAA, until somebody puts some guardrails on this thing and we get some clear, defined rules on when people can transfer and how they're going to do it. It's kind of open season right now.
Does it need to be collectively bargained?
Well, we could probably do a whole segment on this, but at some point, you're either going to have to start treating these players more like employees, and especially at the highest level with the amount of money that they're being made, or you're going to have my preference on this would be very clear windows when kids can transfer. And if you really wanted to tighten it up, you only get the free option to transfer if your coach or coordinator has left. If the staff is staying the same, I would limit some of this free-for-all that we see, because that's been the biggest argument for players, right? Is, hey, I committed to this head coach. He just jumped ship. Well, I should be able to leave as well, which I think is a totally fair argument. The piece that is really difficult is for FCS programs and Group of Five programs, when they have a stud player go off for a year and then their Twitter DMs are blowing up illegally. We know this is happening by people around programs that are saying, hey, look, we can get you $500,000 in NIL money. Just put your name in the portal. That's happening all over the country right now. And there's a trickle-down effect, like we talked about with Group of Five schools, with FCS schools, but also in high school recruiting. There's a lot of guys that are getting passed up and having to go JC or go to FCS that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they would have been going pretty big-time D1.
What do you think if there's going to be guardrails? And when we've used that word before, when a lot of this came out a couple of years ago, there's some that thought we were just trying to keep players from getting what they want. They're getting everything they want, and it was forever and ever they got nothing, or at least it didn't appear that way. If you had to pick one of the two, hypothetically, where would you want guardrails, on the transfer portal or NIL?
On the transfer portal, because NIL, we talked about this with you guys. NIL has opened up the opportunity and took away the cap on kids' value, which I think is fantastic. You're changing kids' lives in college. Frank Harris is coming back to UTSA because he's going to make a boatload of cash and may make more in UTSA than he will ultimately in the NFL. And that's really what this is about at UTSA. And I think that's fantastic. He should make as much money as he can. And if UTSA fans, instead of, and this is across the country, I'm not just using UTSA as the example, or just as the example. If you want to donate to your program and you want to say, instead of giving this to the athletics department where I don't know where this cash is going to go, and I can give it directly to players, I think that's fantastic. I'm a proponent of that. The piece that is really difficult is to use the guardrails. We've said that a few times now. I would prefer that be applied to the transfer model, because it takes away some of the chaos. And that's really what it feels like right now. And it is so difficult. It also impacts less so. There are assistant coaches are getting younger and younger because it is just impossible to keep up if you're a coach in college football. After you do this for 5-10 years, you're getting out of the game. Once they get into their 40s and certainly their 50s, they're saying, I can't do this anymore. This is way too difficult. I can't keep up with this. There's no other sport where it's tracked this way, or really where it's not tracked this way. So that's my long-winded way of saying I would prefer that it was done through the transfers as opposed to NIL money.
Yeah, Taylor, there's a couple of coaches that I could see, that are fairly young guys, like a Dabo Sweeney or someone like that just I think that's probably why you won't see Dan Mullen jumping back in necessarily, rushing to get a job, just because at this point they've made a bunch of money, especially if you're the head coach. And what do you need to try to relearn your whole job for?
And it is so difficult already in recruiting, and the spread is getting wider. This is a change topics just briefly. That's why I'm a proponent of the 12-team playoff as well, because the NIL money, if you had left this at 4 teams, the top 5 or 6 teams in the country, 10 teams in the country are going to continue to dominate recruiting because they're getting all of their recruits through NIL. NIL actually opens it up if you have an expanded playoff where you can go after a bigger pool of kids, and it allows programs like a UTSA, like a UCF that have huge enrollments, where it allows them to go get kids through NIL money. But with regards to recruiting, there's a reason why Kirby Smart has gotten Georgia where they're at, because he is a fanatical recruiter. It is year-round. It never stops, and that is really hard to do. There are not very many coaching staff that can approach recruiting the way that Georgia has. They also have the resources where they've got dozens of people on staff just devoted to recruiting. But again, the NIL, I am a proponent of it, and I have been for the longest time, because forget the superstars. Even at a group of 5 level, you're giving kids opportunities to make cash that they otherwise wouldn't have. And prior to the NIL rule, those kids were missing out on that money, and I never thought that was fair.
What do you think about the waves created just in terms of kind of the focus returning to Boulder, Colorado with the hire of Deion Sanders? Obviously, this coaching carousel has been fun. We're seeing Kenny Dillingham making some waves already at Arizona State, and there's still some more things to be ironed out. But just kind of your thoughts on the carousel and obviously the big splash that was Deion to Colorado.
Deion is going to be fascinating, because we're going to find out really how well does he build his staff and can they coach, right? At Jackson State, you're bringing in 3 stars, 4 stars, and a couple 5 stars. You are overloading the SWAC with talent that the SWAC just, frankly, they've never seen before, right? And so you can get away with, and I think they still scheme was fine, but it really wasn't challenged. You've got a quarterback that belongs at a Power 5 school playing in the SWAC. You've got a 5-star corner. You've got some pieces out there that really is, a little bit unfair. You don't have anybody that looks like that on the other side of the ball. Well, now you're taking all of that to a place where you're competing directly against Utah and Oregon and SC and UCLA for the time being until they leave. And they have 4 and 5 stars as well. So this really comes down to me to what does his staff end up looking like? He's going to get players. Deion it's already been very apparent if you follow any of the stuff on Twitter. He's getting guys, and some of it's through the portal, some of it's through offers that he's putting out right now, but they will have the talent. Really, the next step is, what does the staff look like around him? What does the scheme look like around him? But at a minimum, they are not going to be 2-10 next season.
I noticed that you said you don't have a Heisman vote, but if you did, you would vote Max Duggan. Can you explain your stance on that? I think it's Caleb Williams' probably award to lose tomorrow night, but I do feel like Max Duggan would be the 1B type of guy if I had a vote. But where are you coming from with Max Duggan?
I thought Max Duggan through the back half of the season willed his team into the playoffs. I thought some of his performances, even in a losing effort to Kansas State, I thought the way he gutted that out is a big reason why they're even in the playoffs. And to me, that really spoke to my reasoning on why he would get my vote. Caleb Williams, phenomenal season, had the wow moments late in the year as well, but didn't cap it off when they needed to against the Utah team that they lost to twice. But look, Caleb Williams is the heavy favorite to win it. Obviously, won't be disgruntled at all if he does. He's probably the most deserving in terms of the wow factor for the season, but I thought the way that Duggan led his team down the stretch, I thought he is the reason that they ended up being in the college football playoff.
So, Taylor, again, you're there at Colorado for that game with Shepherd and Colorado School of Mines. That's really cool. When do you get the assignment? Do they call you on Monday, or maybe even Saturday night? They know there weren't many games this week other than the Army-Navy game as far as at the highest level. Kind of go through that protocol, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so because I'm on the team all season with the American that was through all the streaming stuff. All my games were on the app. So when the season was over, I didn't have a bowl game. So I go to FCS playoffs and or Division II playoffs. And I had Incarnate Word last season, and when they won, they had to go to Sacramento State. It moved around teams, and so late Saturday night last week, they were going back and forth on where we were going to go and who was going to be the partner on it. And then, they let us know, hey, you're going to be headed to Colorado School of Mines. There are a lot of teams. Most of the guys that you're going to see doing the bowl games, they're paired up all season. A little bit different program for me. Most of my stuff changes on a week-to-week basis, and assignments are usually given out at this point in the year about a week in advance. But I was excited to get up here. Again, I knew very little about both of these teams, but the energy this week and the excitement from these teams, it's been electric, really. And we're already up here. We're about to go through the walkthroughs and watch the walkthroughs for both of these teams. And the energy up here, it's really going to be a fun one tomorrow.
Taylor, it's good for you, man. I'm glad. I love this time of the year. Love any time of the year college football, but I really like it when maybe the Division II, Division III schools get a little bit more of the attention because there's kind of a gap until the bowl games begin. And obviously from here in Waco, as you know, or Belton, Mary Hardin Baylor has had so many great runs over the years. They're in the semifinals, and I'm glad you're a part of that. That's awesome. Enjoy it, and thanks for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Yep, that's former Rice quarterback and college football analyst for ESPN. So they have that. Again, that's tonight. No, that's for him tomorrow. That's tomorrow. But there are games tonight, and the game, again, 2 o'clock, CBS, Army-Navy.
Yeah, there's 3 games tonight from those semifinals.
Incarnate Word in Sacramento State.
Which is, Lindsey Scott for Incarnate Word is somebody that RG3 has been championing. I don't know if y'all seen that constantly on his Heisman vote, right? Although he's not eligible, obviously, for the Heisman, not playing at the FBS level. But, yeah, I mean, they're obviously in a state of – is G.J. Kinney coaching in that game?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure. But, yeah, so you got G.J. Kinney and Troy Taylor. I mean, that's an interesting –
They could both be gone by the end of the weekend.
Exactly.
One of the two. Well, one of them, two might be.
Well, one of them, yeah. And then, I think that's a good little kickoff. But, 2 other games that you can mention there.
William and Mary, Montana State. Montana State's had an incredible run over the years, and William and Mary has also been active. Samford, Bobby Bowden's alma mater, Paul. And North Dakota State. Now, Samford's been good, but North Dakota State, of course, we know what they've done for like a decade plus. And then tomorrow, the 4th quarterfinal round game, Holy Cross and South Dakota State, who beat North Dakota State earlier in the year.
So I have a question about the Home Depot awards that we were talking about earlier. Is that Freshman of the Year award? Like, I don't remember that being around. Like, I haven't watched them, though, religiously.
It's like they made them up.
I mean, yeah, but I haven't watched that show religiously in probably a couple years because I can just get the results and just not have to deal with all the showmanship and all that. So I don't know what like the exact qualifications are for everything. But Drake May won the Freshman of the Year award, right?
Yes.
And I just had this thought when we were talking a little while ago. Like I remember I said that, I mean that makes sense, very deserving. Garrett, how dare you not mention Harold Perkins over here?
Yes. I was thinking that the whole time.
Where have you been?
Come on, man.
I was thinking about that.
You didn't say it, doesn't count.
Yell at me because you deserve to yell at me for that one because that dawned on me a little while ago. I was like, oh, God, that was not the slam dunk. Still Drake May. I mean, it makes sense and you can't really argue that too much. But shoot, Harold Perkins, I mean, he's got to be right there.
I can tell you it's the only time I've ever seen a true freshman linebacker single-handedly win a game that he did against Arkansas.
Yeah. I mean, you could even – it would be far-fetched and it wouldn't happen, but why not make a case for the Heisman?
No.
Put it out there.
Yeah, I mean –
next year, man.
Yeah.
I know.
Next year, I think you got to really seriously start off with that. I mean, I do think there's a campaign aspect to this. I think Texas waited too long on the Bijan push. Ultimately it didn't cost them the Doak Walker because he's a great player and that eventually shone through. But if you really wanted him to get that kind of Heisman rub, then I think they needed to about, 6 weeks ago, start, whenever you do that process, start sending out the Bijan bobblehead like they did with Ed Oliver in Houston years back or there's been all sorts of little gimmicks.
Colin Klein had a Band-Aid card.
Yeah, they like a little box of Band-Aids. Some people send out trading cards or whatever the case may be. But, yeah, I mean, Harold Perkins has got to get some serious love. And I don't know where he was, and like I said, with how that stacks up in the voting. But I get the Drake May pick, but, yeah.
But one of the things that I looked and tried, and last year, Will Anderson Jr. was in my top 3. He was phenomenal. And this year he ended up being really, really good. But I think early on he was just wasn't quite dominating. I almost like, not that I have to, but I look for somebody. If there would have been a defensive player this year that you would have put inside your top 3, and it didn't seem like there was, would Will Anderson Jr., better than Harold Perkins? Perkins was dynamic. Was there anybody else that we could have looked at, or I could have looked at, as a non-offensive player that could have been in the top 3?
No, I don't think so. And there's years, I'll bang the drum for a guy like Ndamukong Suh all the time. I think, Manti Te'o, the year he was a Heisman finalist, certainly was one of the best 3 players in the country and deserved that award and was the heartbeat of that Notre Dame team. To be a defensive player and really do that, I know sometimes you just got to really be noticed, like Harold Perkins would have been this year. Will Anderson last year, stats-wise. You have to have the measurable stats so that you can make the case. Look, Charles Woodson, when he won the award, won it because of the kick returns in the offense, too. I mean, if he had just been on defense, he might have been relegated to 4th place, or 5th place. Like, he would have been on the list, but he wouldn't have been sitting there.
Who are you saying that about?
Woodson, Charles Woodson.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's just got to be a pretty special guy to knock through all the different things a quarterback, a running back, or a wide receiver can do stats-wise to kind of get your attention. And for Ndamukong Suh, it was always going to be tough because defensive tackles don't normally have a lot of stats that are measurable. Now, he did, but he also, you just watched him and he affected a game so much where, I think that should be the quality for a defensive player of, do coaches have to change their whole game plan because of this one freakazoid here?
Honey Badger.
Go ahead.
Honey Badger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, Honey Badger, definitely.
I don't know if he was ever. Yeah, he's a hell of a player. I'm not saying I don't remember the year he came out and who else was a part of it. A defensive lineman in 1972, Johnny Rodgers, had a 400-vote win over Greg Pruitt, who was an amazing running back at Oklahoma. Rich Glover was a defensive lineman for Nebraska, finished 3rd. And he wasn't that far behind. He was a high 3rd compared to Burt Jones, who was 4th. And that's in 72.
Look, we were just talking about Deion. Deion was as dominant a player as you could possibly imagine and exciting a player in college football. And I don't know, I know he wasn't sniffing that award at that time. So,
I was going to say, guys, that Desmond Howard, Rocket Ishmael, I mean, there's more versatile players, but I just want to circle back to Harold Perkins. Definitely deserves some nods for freshman of the year. I don't know about the Heisman and defense and all of that. I just think that's something that's going to I just, after a while, I don't want to become totally apathetic to it because, like, there are things that if you just stop caring about it, then they just continue to rot or whatever. But I'm sorry, I'm just not every year going to get into why don't defensive players get more respect for, I feel like I've been doing that for a decade at this point, and so it is what it is. And unless you're an absolute, Godzilla level freakazoid, and Ndamukong Suh was. So if he can't win it, then I don't know how you ultimately change that.
Yeah, and Woodson was also a punt returner and all that.
Yeah.
So I just Googled this. This is from the Heisman Trust. The last defensive player as a finalist was Chase Young 3 years ago at Ohio State. Ndamukong Suh in 2009. Warren Sapp from Miami in 94.
Oh, yeah.
That was the team that Nebraska finally broke through and beat them in Miami. Steve Empman in 91. The last Heisman finalist to play linebacker, Jabril Peppers, in 2016. He was 5th in the voting. Manti Te'o was a finalist, finished 2nd in 2012. Wouldn't that have been even more of a story to Johnny Manziel? Hugh Green, 1980. Finished in the top 2. And Alex Karras in the 50s with Iowa finished in 1957. There have been some, but man, it's very. Tyrann Mathieu was fifth in 2011 at LSU. And a dynamic. I use that word too much. He was a multi-talented. He did everything, tackle, whatever.
Look,
Bosworth was fourth, by the way.
Deion doesn't need me stepping up for him here, and I know that I'm biased based on where he went to college. He was a Thorpe Award winner, but, kick returns, punt returns, all that other stuff, he just probably was there at the wrong time for that kind of thing, just that wrong season because, who is better at, being electric than Deion Sanders? Nobody.
All right, when we come back in the 5 o'clock hour, the first segment will be a story in the Lubbock Avalanche Journal from Don Williams on the Big 12 and Texas Tech trying to block a release of communications between Joey McGuire and the Big 12 office post their game against TCU. A note about ticket sales for Colorado and Deion, and then a story that we were right in the middle of 3 weeks ago when SFA's Colby Carthel and then Casey Keeler of Sam Houston State joined us about a merger of a couple of conferences in the FBS that will become eventually a conference in the FBS, and also a dynamic receiver at North Carolina is moving on. This is 365 Sports. Waco Custom Marketplace. They gave me some new stuff last night. Brian Bauer, the owner, did. Holiday rib roast. I'm telling you right now, not everybody loves prime rib, but it's hard not to like it. It depends. A lot of times, prime rib is not cooked. You're not going to get like medium or well done, although maybe on the edges. It is a gorgeous piece of meat. And right now, they have the boneless rib roast available. Select, choice, or prime. Select boneless rib roast, in fact, here, $10.35 a pound. Select bone-in rib roast. Bone-in rib roast is $10.15 a pound. It's actually less. Choice, bone-in rib roast, $13.55 a pound. The rib roast boneless for that same select, that's just the choice cut, is $13.75 a pound. The prime boneless rib roast, $24.99 a pound. It's worth it. I had one actually on the weekend after Thanksgiving. It's like a 3-pounder. Put it in my electric smoker, the Masterbuilt electric smoker. Had it all diced up, had it all seasoned up, had all the stuff you needed. I just turned on the electric smoker, let it get to 275, put it in there, had a tray below it, and just let it go. I mean, for a long time. And then you can't burn it in that electric smoker. And then after maybe 4 or 5 hours, I went back in. It was just perfect. They have absolute, dynamic, beautiful, there's that word dynamic, incredibly delicious tasting rib roast, bone-in and boneless at Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Erie Drive in Waco.
The Big Finish sales event is happening now at Allen Samuels in Waco, and we're celebrating this holiday season with an incredible lineup of all new 2022 Jeep models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Gladiator, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. Jeep SUVs are known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Hurry in, find the Jeep that fits your family. If we don't have exactly what you want, we can order it today. Wrap up some of the best deals of the year and drive home today at Allen Samuels in Waco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. He cooks cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy, last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
Lorenzo Haynes was saying Charles Woodson never got Heisman love. No, he won it. He won it in 97. That's what we brought up. So, last night there was a Colorado men's basketball game. I was wanting to show the video, but we can't because of copyright. But the entire arena, when Deion was walking along the baseline, walking to his seat, was Deion Sanders. I mean, it got louder and louder and just huge. He was wearing a white hoodie. He got up, of course, and acknowledged everybody. It was amazing. The kind of, they just kind of gave you goosebumps if you were watching it, whether you're a Colorado fan or not. Now, on top of that, according to a source, Buffaloes have received almost $500,000 in non-refundable new season ticket deposits over the last few days.
I mean, that's the Deion effect. I mean, that's why you hired him. You didn't, hire him guaranteeing yourself was going to, you were going to win national championships right away. You hired him to increase the profile of the brand, to bring some excitement, to bring some enthusiasm to the fans, and to hopefully pull some big-time recruits and get those donors open their pocketbooks up. Not surprised by that. Brought up a couple days ago the big jump on Instagram followers that they had, and I'm sure that's the case probably across the board of their other various socials, whatever those may be. But, Deion as a brand is something. If you're a Colorado fan, you've been dealing with, Carl Durrell and you've had like an assortment of just
Mel
things.
Tucker for
Mel
a short,
Tucker, leaving for Michigan State, and it's just been there, and not really a whole lot positive to write home about these last several years, really. And I think they've got more excitement right now over the last week and a half than they probably had in the last 5 to 10 years. And that's Deion for you, man. That's what he's bringing. And if he can go win some games, and watch out. The thing with Colorado that I just feel like you have to do is you better take advantage of it right now, because I'm not banking on year 3 returns for Deion and year 4 and I think this is, if he has success, it's going to be something where, the big boys are going to come calling, no doubt about it. So, yeah, if you're Colorado, take advantage of it and enjoy it, but always be working to maximize this as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, look, Deion, if you look at his athletic career as an athlete, as good as he was never anywhere a very long time.
Yeah, once he moved from the Falcons to the 49ers, he became a rent-a player.
Yeah.
He was the difference maker in the 49ers winning the Super Bowl, and then a difference. The Cowboys were good, but then them getting him flipped the switch in 95.
I also think that for him, that 1995 deal with Jerry Jones, Deion was already a superstar, but the Cowboys thing put him into the stratosphere he's in right now because they were the Cowboys. And look,
I don't know, man. That run in San Francisco.
No, it was, but he was there. But then it was the couple years after where they weren't winning the Super Bowl, but Deion was still there for 3-4 more years. You know, playing and making plays, and he was the focal point
until he had 9 toes.
Yeah,
and I joke about that because he's had surgery, but that's back when Galloway, because he had the toe injury. Which now look at him now. He's talked about the surgery he's had. With that.
Well, yeah, Deion Mania it's going wild right now for Colorado fans. You know, remains to be seen what kind of an impact it'll have on the Pac-12 and beyond that. But certainly it's making some waves and creating some headlines in college football. So, you know, that's what they're looking for right now is to shake things up, and they're certainly shaking it up.
All right, now I want to get to a story that we've had right here in our own midst, and maybe we didn't promote it up. I thought we had it up. I know we had it up on our Twitter feed or whatever. But remember when we had first Sam Houston State head coach Casey Keeler. They're moving to Conference USA July 1st of next summer. The same day, maybe it's June 1st, the 4 schools join the Big 12. But whatever that is, they're moving to the Conference USA. And then we had the next week, we had SFA's Colby Carthel on the show. And he dropped this bomb on us, and we mentioned it, we discussed it. I remember I put it in the premium section, discussed it. WAC football members, including SFA, Abilene Christian, Utah Tech, Southern Utah, and Tarleton State, and Atlanta Sun members, Austin Peay, Eastern Kentucky, North Alabama, and Central Arkansas, have signed to join the league together. They're going to merge. And then they're going to attempt to move up into FBS. Now, Colby kind of said you got 2 things coming to affect SFA. One, they're going to join somebody's statewide system, which is UT, but keep the name so they get some infusion of money. And on number 2, they were going to merge with the Atlantic Sun. Now, I saw Pete Thamel had this today, and he had the story today, and that's great. But this was something that was dropped on our show about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and yet even more movement and realignment and future-type change in college football.
Yeah, and, you know, we don't know what the timeline for them to become all FBS schools at once is. You know, usually teams kind of do that on an individual basis, and then you kind of find your way like Liberty did or Old Dominion. You make the move, you go to the highest level, and then you find the conference. This is an entire 2 conferences making the move together to get up to that level. And what Coach Carthel told us is that that's what they have to do to remain kind of relevant and, you know, anywhere in the same kind of tracks as everybody else.
Do you know the last time that an FBS league, or the FBS overall as a league, whatever you want to call it, had a new conference started?
I don't.
I didn't know this until I just saw this. Mountain West back in 1999, which, of course, has been people have come and gone in that conference, including, Boise State, obviously TCU at one point and others. But it's been nearly 2 decades since a new FBS league was formed or added, and back the last one was in 1999, so many years ago with the Mountain West.
Yeah, I mean, apparently there's more certainties playing at that level, which is what they're looking for. But it still needs to pass a vote, a board of directors vote. So we'll see if that happens. I don't know what kind of an appetite there is in the NCAA for, a brand new conference and a bunch of new teams joining up. But I mean, it's sink or swim time. Like, if you haven't been investing in your, athletics department or in your university or what have you, preparing for a time like this, then yeah, you're scrambling right now. And in some cases you're probably flailing. And there will be some that misstepped, like a USF, for example. They'll still be fine in the long run, but they did miss their boat to the Big 12 and to a Power 5, even if that does become a Power 2 here pretty soon. But regardless, it's a step above where they were playing, will be a step above, and they missed that opportunity because they just weren't quite ready. You can argue that maybe Boise missed, a window here or there that, can be debated or not. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody who is anybody, I mean, really, is it any different? Texas and Oklahoma moved up. so to speak, in terms of their conference prestige or value or what have you. So everybody's doing it. Everybody's trying to find ways to make more money. Everybody's trying to find more certainty in their path. And, I guess the one thing I kind of back away from is a path towards the playoff. I'm sorry, I don't see Stephen F. Austin matching up with George anytime soon. But on all those other things that were mentioned, I can see why you'd want more certainty, more scheduling certainty, more money certainty.
The money infusion,
Yeah, all that. I mean, I totally get it. Remains to be seen, though, because this is, again, something that needs to be passed and voted on and whatnot.
Well, you have to try to grow, and decisions like this are 50-year decisions.
Sure, yeah.
And they have to be 50-year decisions. So, yeah, Georgia and Stephen F. Austin aren't probably ever going to play each other in the playoff, and even 50 years from now. But 50 years from now, things will probably look drastically different. And if there's a business model that Stephen F. Austin and, Rio Grande Valley and all these schools jumped into that they've set themselves up for, then it will be better for them while those changes happen, as opposed to going, well, I don't know what we can do. We're just this, we're little old Nacogdoches, Texas. What are we supposed to do?
Jacks.
Yeah, you've got to keep going. You've got to fight your way. Sometimes, even though you might be a small town, you've got to act like a big city, and you have to make big city moves.
If you can be a part of what is the expansion of 24, what now we even heard what Dennis Dodd mentioned that might even go past 12, whatever it might end up being. There's money involved if you're attached to the new college football playoff expansion. And that means money for FCS, or Group of 5, And if you could somehow become one, even if it's like you said, 10, 15, 50 years as far, you got to get it. Otherwise, again, it's part of that being left out on the front porch. Josh Downs, two-time all ACC wide receiver, North Carolina, is turning pro. Had a heck of a year. Back-to-back 1,000-yard years, 22 career touchdown passes, was a major part of Drake May and of numbers he put up.
Catches.
What did I say?
Passes.
Caught passes from Drake May. He is turning pro. He will not play in the Holiday Bowl against Oregon.
Yeah, a really good player. Star for North Carolina, and as you mentioned, a good little Robin to Drake May's Batman, I guess, if you will. But, yeah, really good player, and he'll definitely, that move makes sense and doesn't come as much of a surprise. But I will add there's been a couple more just in the last few minutes that have also – I guess one of them is within the last 2 minutes. Another one, I guess, been out there for about the last hour. But Louisville quarterback Malik Cunningham entering the NFL draft, making that official. He will also not play in the Fenway Bowl, so he will avoid the whole to-do with his former coach being on the other side, or however that's going to work ultimately. But Malik Cunningham is going to be entering the NFL draft, and he's been dinged up, so that's pretty simple, I think, and to the point that he's going to be doing that. And I guess if you were to say, who is Mr. NIL, what Quinn Ewers would have to be up there. But I think another guy, and he was also heavily involved with Texas, O'Shawn Mathis, plans to enter the 2023 NFL draft from Nebraska, and prior to that, TCU. Loved to pick his – I'm sure the money's didn't make him care about not being in Fort Worth this year, but that had to sting a little bit, not being a part of that run to the college football playoff.
You know it stung a little bit, Craig?
That they didn't need him?
No, they didn't need him, but also he was okay. He got better the last game or two because all of a sudden, he's going to.
But he is entering the NFL draft, had 48 tackles and 3.5 sacks this year for Nebraska. So Matt Rule will not have his services, but there's a couple more names for
you. His roster.
Yeah. Scott Frost needed to do the 15 transfers and see how it worked out for him, and
that's what Matt Rule's probably going to have to do, because he's had guys. Again, it's all a coaching change, and some of the ways he goes about his business is going to be some people that go, wait a minute, I don't want to be a part of this, because it's going to be a different culture. At least he hopes so. All right, the Army-Navy game again is coming up tomorrow afternoon. Earlier yesterday, we had Ahmad Bradshaw, Army quarterback, join the show. He broke a 14-year excruciating losing streak for the cadets against the midshipmen. We're going to play that back today, and we hope you enjoy it, because it is the game of all games. And again, most everybody has some sort of emotional tie to it. There's a couple of other stories to get to. I think we've gotten them all. If we have time when we come back between here and the top of the five, huh?
I say, yeah, you've been teasing this. I forgot about this.
The Big 12 and Texas Tech are combining forces to block release of a communications post after the TCU Texas Tech game, in which Joey McGuire had numerous questions about calls and some officiating rules. We'll get to that, I promise. Katie Rader, you asked about that. We'll have that among others. And this is 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, used to be, and now need to be. How does he do it? One, you contact him. Website, PettyClinicLowT.com. Email, phone number, tell them I sent you. They'll set you up, his staff, to get your blood work. And they'll set you up and they'll take care of that for you. Once he gets the results, the lab results, once he finds out where your testosterone level is, can offer a program, an option for you to increase your testosterone levels and become the high-performance man you want to be. It might be that you've lost your energy. It might be that you don't feel the same. Your strength is not the same. There's a lot of things that can go into that, but testosterone is father time. It happens to 1 out of every 3 men, and you just start to have things go bad or not be the same. Could be ED, could be your sex drive, could be your focus, it could be your sleep habits, it could be, like I mentioned, you just don't have the strength anymore that you had before, and it could be the lack of testosterone. Dr. Kent Petty can help you out at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Collision Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Collision Ford.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to PettyClinicLowT.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Football galore, but we are thrilled to have former Army Cadet star quarterback Ahmad Bradshaw with us on 365 Sports. He joins us here on the show. And, of course, the game. To me, the greatest rivalry in all of college football is this Saturday, Army-Navy and Ahmad Bradshaw. Ahmad, thank you very much for your time, and we appreciate your insight. Also, thanks to the U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company and Captain Kai Kizzy. What does the game, when I hear or you hear Army-Navy, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's everything. Like, this is the one time in the year where you can go against your rival, which is arguably the best rival football game in the country. But it's the one time where you get to gain those bragging rights for 365 days a year. I tell everybody, when you first come to campus, the first thing you see is beat Navy at West Point, and I'm sure they have theirs up as well. But it's the first time, the one time only you get to have those bragging rights. So it means everything.
Ahmad, you were part of the team that broke a very long streak, and I watched maybe more of that game than I had time to today on YouTube, just trying to find highlights. And then you know how you fall in a YouTube hole. You can get there for a while. But that one in the snow where you guys were wearing the all whites had to be one of the most fun but difficult games ever. Can you take us back to that a little bit?
Yeah, so a lot of people always say that was the first time the Army got camo right, and I see why they say that. I was watching film, and you could barely see the players from the bird's eye view. And, I mean, that game was just amazing. It was we definitely got camo right. It was tough because it was so cold and slippery, and, you know, we prided ourselves on protecting the ball. And that was honestly, being from Chicago, my first time playing an organized game in the snow. So it was definitely a challenge.
You know, Ahmad, when we talk to guys, often coaches, players, what have you, they always talk about how you try to keep every week the same, right? You're not like looking at the opponent. You're not looking at like the star player on the other side. Just everything's kind of the same as far as the focus goes. Is that harder during Army-Navy week? And what is a game week like leading into this one?
Yeah, so this game, I was going to talk about this probably when you asked, you know, who did I think was going to win. But, I mean, it's not really hard. It's really two familiar teams, right? We know each other very well. And this is probably a fun time. There's a lot of activities going on at school. But the hardest thing for us, I guess, is just staying focused and not letting those activities distract us. So two familiar teams knowing each other, it always comes down to which quarterback is going to perform the best, who's going to make the least amount of mistakes, and who's going to win the turnover battle. That's what this game comes down to every year, regardless of how well or how bad the other team does against other opponents. These two teams, Army and Navy, that's what it comes down to every year.
Ahmad, they had won 14 straight until you crossed the goal line. I think 6 minutes left in the game to take the lead. There was still time left. Can you try to describe that moment and what that meant?
Yeah, so, I mean, the moment was just electric for sure. It was 2nd and 8, I remember it, and we had about, 4 more yards to go after the first down, but I was just trying to make sure I protected the ball. You know, I trusted my offensive lineman. I trusted the fullback. It was Andy Davidson in at the time. I remember the play like it was yesterday, and it was definitely an electric moment. One of our teammates actually passed away earlier that year, Brandon Jackson. His number was 28. So when I went back and looked at the film and realized it was actually 2nd and 8, I always say that he was with us in that moment whenever people ask me about that. touchdown. So it was definitely he led us to that victory and helped us break the streak.
Ahmad, what is on the board? There doesn't appear to be enough running backs in that formation on the board for that to be Army. Formation.
This board was just gonna talk about what I was breaking down earlier, but basically these are some of the key players. I'll walk you through it top to bottom. It's probably reverse on your screen, but these are just some of the key players that we should look for during the game. But T2, Tyler, Jamil Jones. I actually coached him at the prep school. They're two great quarterbacks with talents that are opposite of each other. I think Jamil's better at throwing. I think Tyler's a better runner at protecting the ball. Brahim Murphy, obviously, I coached him at the prep school as well, but he is very fast, and when he gets in the open field, hopefully we can get him the ball a lot tomorrow. If you've been watching the season, he's an electric player. Jacoby Buchanan, the bust, the B-back leading this offense, he'll be a highlight. And then Isaiah Austin, I don't know if you saw his one-handed catch going viral everywhere. But we got some big players on offense and even the defense. Marquell, a great leader, and Andre Carter there on the D-line. These are some of the guys that just to look for during the game. And this is our base offense and defense. So, the offensive lineman, the quarterback, B-back, 2 slots, and 2 receivers. We can obviously, manipulate this to make it fit any scenario or position. But the defense, Navy and Army are very familiar with one another. And like I said, it's going to come down to these 3 things: the QB performance, whichever QB protects the ball, performs the best, gets the ball to the right people at the right time, the least amount of mistakes, and then a turnover battle. That's really what it comes down to every year. So that's what I had up on this board. I wanted to show you all, before we got off.
Well, that's awesome, Ahmad. We appreciate all that. Again, former Army, and I don't know if they say former Army quarterback Ahmad Bradshaw with us on 365 Sports. So there's a lot of Texas representation as well. In fact, Jamel Jones from the Colony up near Fort Worth and much more. When you were offered a scholarship to play Army football, to go to the U.S. Army, go to West Point, do you remember? I saw this in a story written about you. What was your reaction to that?
I think when Coach Walk came to recruit me, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, I want to offer you a scholarship to West Point." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." And then I kind of whispered to my high school coach, like, "Hey, Coach, what's West Point?" Yeah. So if that's the story you're talking about, that's probably what you read. I didn't know what it was at the time.
Yeah, that was
the story.
Yeah, that was it. It was out of the Chicago Tribune, I believe. It's a great story about your life. By the way, U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company is one of our title sponsors, and Captain Kai Kizzy, you know him, and that your mom's first name is Kizzy, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's spelled K-I-Z-Z-Y. I believe Captain Kizzy is Z-Z-I-E, so it's a little different spelling, but yeah, that's her name.
So what does it mean to just represent West Point?
Oh, it means everything. West Point has done so much for me, as far as changing me, making me think a certain way, transforming me into a leader, not only in, football, but in the classroom, in my community, for my family. It is, if you talk to a lot of cadets, they'll tell you that, hey, I'm different just by being 1 year at the academy than I was when I was back home in high school. So it means a lot to go out and represent the leadership laboratory of the world. And whenever you go outside or whenever you're in public, you always you're reminded that this is on my back. I sometimes wear my ring. I don't have it on in the house today, but when I leave, I typically wear it to remind myself of all of those lessons that I learned. And when I'm outside, if I have to make a leadership decision, this is how I'm going to do it with what I learned at West Point.
Ahmad, you talked about coaching at the prep school. That's kind of an interesting thing that the service academies do have, is the prep school, and a pretty necessary thing, isn't it? Yeah. What is that like, especially you getting them so early on in their military career too? I mean, that you're kind of seeing that wide-eyed or what is going on from the first year cadets.
Yeah, so as a prepster, we call ourselves prepsters. We typically get a one-up, not necessarily, being better than the other cadets that come directly, because they have a lot to offer, as you can see. But as a prepster, you kind of gain a physical advantage because it's kind of a redshirt year, for the athletes. And then you also get a refresher on academics while still transitioning and learning all of the military things that you have to do the following year. So when I came in as a plebe, a lot of my classmates were panicking, during basic training. It's very challenging and tough. But I was able to keep them calm and say, hey, I can help you make your bed, or I can teach you how to shine shoes. And the trade-off is they'll teach me, things educational, or they'll help me in a class that I may be struggling in. So it's definitely a trade-off for physical and educational things, but it was definitely beneficial for me and all my prepsters.
Ahmad, there's a lot of cool scenes in college football, a lot of cool backdrops, but it always seems like this game has one of the cooler backdrops, and just the familiarity that you spoke to, the brotherhood that you've spoken to as well. But what's it like to just suit up and run out onto the field with this game, knowing who's in the stands, knowing all of your brothers and sisters and everybody that's involved on both sides? Like, just does that feel different the way that it comes across to just a bystander like me watching on television?
Yeah, definitely. I visited a lot of college campuses, and don't get me wrong, there's, a lot of different brotherhoods and a lot of different things. But the thing that I appreciate about Army football, win, lose, or draw, we have each other's back no matter what through a lifetime. It's not just a 4-year brotherhood or a six-year brotherhood, however long you're at the school. You get old grads reaching out to you from the class of 76, the class of 77, and you never heard of these guys. And then you meet them and you learn so much about them and their experiences and how the Corps has changed over, however many years it's been. But the brotherhood is definitely something that matters, and it's something that you feel when you step out on the field.
Ahmad, when you were younger, you saw a lot of things that were bad in this world, and also had to suffer through tragedies with friends and cousins and stuff like that in the south part of Chicago. To be where you are today, to be able to, what your mom did raising you as a single parent, can you kind of discuss what role, the obvious role she had in your life and what she's meant to you?
Yeah, definitely. My mother is like my rock. She is the reason I am who I am today. I remember watching her work from 8 in the morning to 5 at night, and then going to night school from 6:30 to 9 p.m. And I tell people that, hey, it was a point in my time where my dog didn't know who she was. So we had to get rid of him because he would bark at her when she come home at night. She was working so much. But yeah, watching her, do what she did, make sacrifices for me, and then we would compete academically. Just a level of discipline that she instilled in me at a young age, hats off to her, because a lot of women don't have that structure that, that a man may provide being in a household. But she was able to give me not only the academics, but the physical structure, the day-to-day things that I needed to be a respectful young man and a contributing citizen. So, in the article that I read from Teddy Greenstein from the Chicago Tribune, it mentioned that you were a chess enthusiast. So my question for you, is there anything comparing that from chess to running the triple option the way you did in football? Absolutely. I think everyone should play sports or some type of board game. I think it's an analogy for life. Chess is all about strategy, putting yourself in the best position and anticipating someone else's move who is also trying to do that, right? You're trying to win this game. And the same thing in football. All option is, like, this base lineup is just the basics. We want to line up guys to put us in the best position to force the defense to kind of move themselves and make them think they're in the best position for themselves and do something that they don't know that's coming. So it's the same thing in chess. Like when I play chess, I'm thinking 3 moves ahead. I'm thinking, hey, if I position myself like this, what is the best move you're going to do to position yourself to attack me? And I want you to think that this is the best thing for you so that I can know, how to move forward. But yeah, it's definitely comparable.
Ahmad, what's your Army career like now, or where are you? What's your future hold?
Yeah, so I actually tore my ACL. We were deployed to the border doing a border mission, and I tore my ACL doing some physical requirements, meniscus. So I actually got medically discharged from the Army this past October. So I'm actually transitioning out. The Army has done nothing but great things for me, like West Point. I'm here stationed at Fort Campbell. I'm a retired artillery officer. So definitely grateful for what the Army has done for me, but now I'm transitioning into the civilian world.
So, Ahmad, you pointed out that whiteboard. You pointed out a couple of things for us. But as we look at this game coming up this weekend, what are some things that are of focus to you? What are some things that matter heading into this game as far as the teams themselves and the game itself goes?
Yeah, just one game that I compare or that I look for to see how these games are going to end is the Army Air Force or the Navy Air Force game. I watch how both of us perform against Air Force because it's you can kind of see what they're going to anticipate, what new plays they have in, and how we're going to play the same way. And obviously, we both lost to Air Force, but some of the things I think Army is going to have to do is protect the ball. We got 5 turnovers this year on the ground and 2 interceptions. And the same with Navy. Like, they're going to have to protect the ball. Whichever quarterback gets the ball to the right guy at the right time is going to be the successful team. And winning a turnover battle is the number one difference in the winner and loser in this game.
Ahmad, will you be at the game since you're at the prep school? Will you be there on the sidelines in the stadium?
No, unfortunately, I will not. So when I coached at prep school, it was in 2018. So Jamel Jones, the quarterback that's a senior now, he was a prepster when I was coaching back then. So I won't be at the game, just working on this transition and getting in the best position moving forward. But, yeah, I'll definitely be watching it.
Well, you brought up Air Force there a second ago. We are here in Waco, and Baylor, based here in Waco, they're taking on Air Force in the bowl game here in a couple of weeks. So what kind of challenge are they in for? I mean, I know it's a lot tougher to face Air Force when it's a regular season game and you've only got like that short turnaround, right? They've got a little bit of extra time, but that's still not the easiest team to prepare for, is it?
Yeah, no, absolutely not. A lot of big schools have a lot of advantages against, academies when it comes to not having to abide by certain rules and sleep and, different class schedules and those type of trainings in the Army that we're forced to do. But I think Air Force should perform well because they still, these teams, their disadvantages, they don't play this offense every day. Mm-hmm. So when somebody's coming at you to cut block, you still got to know how to, take it. And the defensive linemen are used to coming off the edge, rushing the passing quarterback, and now they got to slow down and look for the dive. So it'll be challenging on both sides, but I think Air Force will do well. They've been playing really good football, and they've been throwing it really well, too.
Well, it is the game. It is the rivalry. It is incredible. I know Air Force won the Commander-in-Chief trophy this year, as you mentioned, and Craig mentioned they beat both Navy and Army. But, Ahmad, it's a great pleasure and honor to have you on for what you served as going to West Point and as a soldier and what you're doing now in corporate America. Good luck. I think you could go coach again. I think you could go do that. In fact, you ever relied back on something like that, you could do it. And public speaking, too. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much. Ahmad Bradshaw, former Army cadet quarterback. He's the one that scored. Thank you very much again to Captain Kai Kizzy, U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company. That was fun. Ahmad Bradshaw, part of the history of Army-Navy, winning back-to-back years and also snapping Army's 14-year losing streak. When we come back, we have the story about Texas Tech and the Big 12 trying to squelch any type of open records act on this TCU Texas Tech post, text, email, whatever, involving some officiating. We'll have that and Paul's Top 5, which is on the University of Houston and quarterbacks. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, they had the grand opening earlier this week, and man, I drove by that on Loop 340, just on the east side of 35, and it is just gorgeous. I've been to their place where they had been forever, 80 years or so, and this one here, bigger, better, faster, stronger, but they will never lose the core of who they are, which is customer service, family values of what they do with their own business and how they've owned it and who has owned it forever, decades. New facility, more than twice the size of their old one, allowing them more inventory, new inventory, higher quantities of inventory in a much more organized fashion. Standard long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat now carry several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut that will save time for anyone who needs and does, wants to just haul something away at whatever you have at a commercial or residential site. 2,500 square foot showroom with over 1,000 new products in stock, All new welding supplies, hardware, do-it-yourself components for any project, 25,000 square feet. Carrying Quickcrete, so you can now get your post pipe, hinges, latches, and concrete for fences, gates, saving you the time of having to go to several places for material. New facility designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient, easy drive lanes, and much more throughout the building. It is fantastic. Relationships, customers, it matters. Like Coach Aranda says, person over player, we feel the same way about our customers. That's from Braden Embry, the general manager. Pioneer Steel and Pipe, pioneerboys.com.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your home for holiday favorites for parties or time with the family, with various specials available while supplies last in store or ordering by phone, including 8 to 10 pound half spiral hams at $4.15 a pound, 12-pound pit hams at $4.35 a pound, 8 to 22 pound bone-in hams for $3.40 a pound, 14 to 16 pound whole raw turkeys at $2.85 a pound, and $4.80 a pound for 9 to 12 pound whole smoked turkeys, 6 to 8 pound mini pit hams for $5.99 a pound. Limit 4 of each item per customer. Call in advance to ensure availability or drop by Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. Waco Custom Marketplace, your full-service butcher shop for customized orders or cuts of your favorite steaks or beef tenderloin or specially ordered prime rib roast. WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
The secret to living your best life is pizza, obviously. Golden crust made from scratch, 3 fresh signature cheeses, and the toppings, crispy old world pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, bacon. That's called a dream team. Find everything you need to live your best life and more at Marco's Pizza. Owner Bob Mock has been delivering pizza since 2001 and is the proud owner of 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to be open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneerboys.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Rush comes for Fresno State. Low kick. Remigio will play it on the 30. Come up the field. He'll get to the 40. Has blockers. To the 50, to the 40. He may be gone. 30, 20. He's going to walk into the end zone, and Fresno State will take the lead 6-3.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Quick note, congrats to Baker Mayfield, former Oklahoma Heisman winner, after what he did last night. Insane 98-yard drive, which it looked like it ended a couple of different times, including a pick. Raiders had some penalties, but Mayfield had been with them 48 hours. I mean, how do you do that? And he was throwing some dimes. He took them down the field. He scored once and came back and scored again with less than 10 seconds to go, and a gorgeous throw to Van Jefferson. I thought that was ballsy for a guy that sometimes gets criticized quite a bit.
Yeah. And look, Baker's going to he's going to be up and down. I think that's what we've seen. But if there's a coach who can get the most out of him, I think that will jive personality-wise, it's Sean McVay. I think he and Sean McVay are pretty, simpatico in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, Baker does some amazing things, and he does some things that leave you scratching your head, like, throwing the touchdown pass there to Van Jefferson to win the game and then going and headbutting somebody without a helmet on the sideline moments later. So I don't think we've seen him enter concussion protocol just yet, but if we did, that wouldn't be a shock after last night. But no, that's the fun, spunky side of Baker Mayfield, just the energetic kind of kid playing football still that people do love about him. So I hope that he soaks up that moment last night, and we'll see where it goes from here on out. But very cool story, especially given the kind of turbulent last couple of years that he's had in particular in the league, and seemingly on his way out to have a moment like that was really cool for him and the Rams.
Now, there's this story. Big 12 joins Texas Tech asking the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, to block release of communications the post-TCU Texas Tech game. Attorney for the Big 12 asking that. Avalanche Journal, in an open records request sent to Tech on November 8th, asked for communications sent to or received from the Big 12 office by Tech officials, AD Kirby Hocutt, Deputy Athletic Director Tony Hernandez, and Coach Joey McGuire, and football staff member Harrison Hanna between the 4th and 8th of November. It all came from when Joey McGuire, after the loss to TCU, said in his weekly press conference, a number of plays or questions about rules interpretations his staff sent in for a review was close to 12, which he described as a higher number than usual. The Avalanche Journal's open records request attempts to make those exchanges public.
Yeah, I read this story differently last night. I thought that Tech was trying to get these open record requests released because they wanted the world to see that there were some bogus calls in this loss to TCU. That's what I thought it was at first, and I was like, well, that's kind of daring because that could come, firing back on you. And now I'm even more puzzled of why the Lubbock Avalanche Journal is pursuing this. I mean, I guess they just want it out there, but yeah, I think that if you're the Big 12, if there were some questionable calls, of which there certainly were in that game, I remember hearing McGuire, have some grievances about that in the post game, if I'm remembering correctly. You got TCU heading into the playoff. I don't think you want to dim their shine at all by saying, well, they shouldn't have won this game because this happened. Not that maybe the whole world would even realize that, but yeah, that's just a weird sort of story. And I guess the Avalanche Journal is the one that's pursuing this.
Yeah, and I think it's because he said it, and they're like, well, if it's more than normal, let's see. Yeah. So they asked. The Big 12 and Texas Tech don't want this to come out in their response is that there are things that could harm the league overall, and that I don't think that necessarily means that something shady is going on. I just think that they know that there's not a way that anything can come out about the officiating in this game that particularly Texas Tech fans are going to read and rationally respond to.
Right.
Or that the league can't make look differently than it may look, even though there's nuance or levels to it. And I'm not stumping for the league here. I just think that, that's what their strategy is, because they know that this is probably something they don't want to come back from. They also want to try to stop a precedent of every time that there's a controversial call in a game that you do, and you know that a coach is going to do it because Somebody asked the coach in a press conference, "Hey, Coach X, why did this happen?"
We sent that to the league, and
here you go. Here's
yeah.
the free. They're just going to have to do it over and over and over again. Now, how they could solve this is be a little bit more transparent with the officials.
A little bit more transparent, yes.
After the game, and do what the NFL does
and send
a pool reporter in to ask the questions. And the pool reporter is a reporter from, it's not somebody that's appointed by the league. It's somebody that the press, agrees to. And, at the Cowboys game, I believe it's Todd Archer, or it was for a long time. It might still be. But, if you want Todd to ask the official a question, you can go up to Todd and say, "Hey, Todd, will you ask him this for me, please," while you're in there, and they'll answer it for him to the best of their capabilities.
I think that this is far less of the story than I thought it was last night when I thought the Tech was involved in trying to get this shown. So now that, once I realized that, no, this is just the paper pursuing this, and even Tech itself is like, no, we don't want that out there, then, that lost a lot of sizzle to me.
Why would they not want it out there?
Because what Paul said, I mean.
The fans, okay.
It's just dominoes falling and falling and falling.
It never ends. It's like pulling a scar back.
If it was them as a school doing it, you'd be like, oh, whoa, this could be massive. Like there's a conspiracy going on. But
the Vice President of Legal Affairs and Compliance for the Big 12 wrote an email saying that the substance of the documents containing the exchanges in question, he said portions of the letter that he sent to the Big 12 redacted. In subheads that are not redacted, Presnell made the case to Paxton for confidentiality of certain commercial information under the Texas government code. The Big 12's marketplace interests are at risk, and that disclosing information poses a specific threat of actual harm. I don't know.
Well, and look.
But I do wish there was more transparency.
The other thing about freedom of information requests is that I can walk in and make one for anything.
People do.
I just have to be a citizen of this country. And I think the Big 12 is also pretty smart in going, we don't want the internet to start doing this for everything and us having to deal with this if we can protect it under some kind of statute because, dear God.
Yeah. All right. We appreciate you throughout the week. We're not done because Paul's top 5 is coming up around the corner. We say this a lot. We do. Here in a second. We say this a lot, and we want you to know. Some of you are new to what we do this week. You've been added on. I saw a Colorado fan that said he thought that the Big 12 was dead in the water, and it's a laughing matter that the Big 12 may add Colorado. We made that comment not as something as a prediction earlier in the week, as just something about the value because their name has been brought up. But we appreciate you being a part of now watching us on 365 Sports.
And I'll tell you, too, we appreciate it, but there's plenty of Big 12 fans that would laugh out loud at the thought of bringing Colorado back into the Big 12. So, it depends on your vantage point, but that's all just discussion about what would potentially happen if the Pac-12 were to fall apart. That's where that comes from. It's not a report.
And we're so much further down the road of that backbiting, middle school type mentality, and we wish everything well for Colorado, the Pac-12, and anyone else in between. Paxton, as soon as Paul finishes his top 5, when we wrap up the show, you want to put it on the chat room, your top 5. Paul, it's time.
All right, top 5 transfer quarterbacks for Houston. This was requested by Aiden on the text line, and if you would like to request something, please send it to the text line so I don't get lost in the chat, 254-339-1122. I will do my best to do a top 5 about it. Sometimes there's not 5 of certain things, but I will do my best. So top 5 transfer QBs for Houston. This is for you, Aiden. Thank you for the request. Number 5, Kyron Drones. He's from the Houston area.
Shadow Creek High School.
He, was a pretty hotly recruited player. I'm sure the coaching staff there has some sort of recruiting relationship with him, though I don't know how much. But if you're going to get a young guy who looks to me like I don't know if he's ready to start and help you win the league in the Big 12 next year, but I certainly think in the limited action we saw him, he showed that he's got the talent to win games in the Big 12 or play in the Big 12.
Paul, if he's going to get them winning the Big 12 next year, then Dave Aranda should be fired.
Oh, exactly. Yeah,
if he chose the guy over the guy that goes to Houston and wins a Big 12 title, then that was a pretty massive misstep on. But yeah, no, I think Kyron can win ball games, and obviously, location doesn't always matter. There's some people that hate where they're from, but more often than not in college football, people do stay closer to home. I think it's because you're young, you get homesick and all of that. But, yeah, I think Kyron anywhere that's Big 12 level or around the state of Texas, I think everybody's probably peeling back the layers on Kyron Drones and what he could potentially do. And beyond, I see a lot of Virginia Tech Twitter love, and Twitter love's not necessarily always realistic, but I did see at least that over the past couple of days of a lot of Hokies love for Kyron Drones. But, yeah, I could see him at Houston.
Yeah. Wait a minute. There's love on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Some. Number 4 depends on what they can do for you. Number 4, Haynes King. This one, also from, he's from close-ish to Houston. Longview's not exactly just a stone's throw, but
3 hours, 2.5.
But he's from close to there. I think in the right system he will work. The health questions remain, but he was ready to start in the SEC according to Jimbo Fisher, and it just didn't work out in that system. A lot of people will be after Haynes King. I think this actually might be the best fit for him, and I think he can go there and perform pretty well in Dana Holgerson's system pretty quickly.
I don't know what he's going to do next. I really don't.
Who wants to play for Holgerson right now?
Yeah, that's
a big question for me. Like, I don't know. That's not specific to Haynes King by any means, but I do want to say that just in general of like, what are you signing up for with him at the moment? They had the benefit of having a super veteran quarterback in Clayton Tune and didn't take nearly as much advantage of that as they should. But yeah, Haynes will be he'll be a hot commodity in so many ways, but I feel unfortunately for him, it's basically because of name recognition and nothing to do at all with his game at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I think there needs to be a severe reevaluation of exactly where he belongs, because it wasn't at A&M and it wasn't in the SEC at this stage in his career. But the same coaches and scouts and outside voices who are maybe disparaging him right now, he was the talk of the town during the state championship run just a couple of years ago. And I don't think that everybody was just massively off in their evaluations unless we all just got caught up in the hype of Longview's state title run. But I don't think that was that widely publicized that you'd have recruiting services all over the country that are blown away by that. So there's tools there, obviously. And Jimbo clearly thought he had something. And Jimbo might not be as much of a QB whisperer as he used to, but he still knows more than most. So, yeah, I could see Haynes at Houston. I think that'd be kind of like top level for him, though.
Yeah.
I think that'd be probably about as max at this stage of where he could end up.
No, I think probably he's more like a Tulsa or Arkansas State
probably,
kind of Louisiana Monroe, Lafayette kind of a guy.
He does have some Louisiana ties, deep Louisiana ties, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Number 3, Mikey Keene. The guys won games in the conference with the Houston's playing in. I like Mikey Keene. The guy wins. He is not going to be, I think, anybody like the Devin Leary of the transfer class, but he is savvy enough and veteran enough to come in and help a team win pretty soon, especially if they have talent around him. Although, like you said, Craig, I don't know what's going to happen at Houston. Like Dana Holgerson's going to have to, kind of do a reboot there.
I'm just saying, if you're going there as a grad transfer for 1 year, you're fine. But if you're going there with hopes of playing like 2, 3, 4 years for the same guy, it's not the safest place in the world right now.
That takes out a guy like Kyron Drones or Haynes King, or
If you're going because of Holgerson, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you're going because of Holgerson, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't bet on him being there for 3 years right now with my next paycheck.
Especially if the Big 12 transition in year one doesn't work out, just based on the caustic things that are kind of going on.
Yes. Mikey Keene, though, we saw a little less than a handful of games for him. He was definitely a fun player to watch. Obviously, John Rice Plumlee was more of their dynamic runner that kind of made things happen. But Keene did a great job, when he had his opportunities. You wonder if UCF had a couple of really healthy quarterbacks down the stretch. That would have certainly helped matters. But, yeah, he's a name that I think is kind of a new compared to some of these other guys, but he'll certainly attract some attention. I don't know to what degree, but yeah, he was a fun player to watch for the Knights this year.
Yeah. Number 2, Daniel Richardson from Central Michigan. This is a guy that's going to be under a lot of radars. He's shooting up the transfer charts a little bit. He's put up big numbers at Central Michigan, and he's not a big guy. He's 5'11", 195. Reminds me a little bit of a healthy De'Aaron King that they had there under Dana Holgerson, obviously. And, he's going to be a short-term dude. He's trying to raise his profile. Now, he might get better offers or bigger offers from schools that are bigger than Houston. But this is one I think kind of fits what Houston does. So we'll see. And he is someone who's played his way into the Power 5 because he had one Power 5 offer. It was from Miami. And you know where he's from? Miami. So he kind of got that as being one of the better high school players in Miami. And then the rest of the stuff was FAU and FIU and Central Michigan and schools like that. So this might be a nice Power 5 transition for him in an offense that works if it's going to hum. But again, he might have some tougher offers. But Daniel Richardson from Central Michigan, keep an eye on his name in the portal. He's gonna get a pretty cool opportunity, I think.
Fair enough.
I don't know enough about him, but I'm glad you told me.
Yeah, I didn't really even know all that. I've seen his name in the portal, and I'd heard of him during the year, seen a couple highlights here and there, but didn't really know the depth of the stats until Aiden asked me to do this, and I was going to do more than just put all the guys who are transferring from Texas schools up as well. Number one, and this would be the biggest get, Hudson Card would be a great transfer get for Houston. I just think that there's bigger names from Houston that are going to get him, but he's a pretty good fit for a lot of offenses, including Dan Holgerson's. So
I like the way he handled himself. I like the way he handled the opportunities he had. I like the way he handled when things did not go well. I just something about that young man that I really do like. Casey Thompson was a starter in and out at Texas. We know that at times he was brilliant, at times he was not. He ended up having a pretty good year for a bad team. And I Craig, you think Casey Thompson's better than Hudson Card or vice versa?
No.
Okay.
No.
Then Hudson Card.
On potential, no.
Okay.
Yeah. He's shown more. I guess that could be argued as well. No, I'll say no. Based on all factors, no.
And he had himself a run, and he might be back for another year with Matt Rule. We'll see.
I think Hudson's bigger than Houston, even with him joining the Big 12. But yeah, if you had your ideal pick, I understand why a lot of people have Hudson Card as like their number one. And a lot of it's, some of it is based on what we've seen, the glimpses and the spot starts and things like that. But a lot of it is like what we haven't seen that people think he's capable of. And so, yeah, I think that it'd be hard for Houston to beat out probably like the Notre Dames and, those programs. But if they could land him, that would be absolutely massive. Call Papa Fertitta and get him to open up the NIL bank, and maybe he can make that happen. But, Hudson Card is going to be the number one for a lot of these lists. Just switch out the school logo.
By the way, I will not be putting on transfer quarterback lists, I will not be putting JT Daniels and Keaton Slovis on any of them.
Okay.
Because
former USC rule?
No, it's just – I don't think they're the best option for anybody.
Agree. Yeah.
They've already been to 100 places.
You're a hater. And Paxton, by the way, it was 0 for 5. He's 0 for 5 in trying to pick the quarterbacks for the University of Houston.
Something was I need to mention two things. Something was bugging me about Richardson. I feel like something was itching at me, and I went and looked, and I was like, why is Central Michigan sticking in my head? It's because Burt Emanuel Jr. ended up having a terrific year for them. He's from the state of Texas. He's a young guy. He's a runner, but he had some impressive showings, especially as the year was closing. Made the Earl Campbell list at least once, if not a couple of times, with his running ability, more so than his passing. But he's part of the reason why Richardson's on his way out of Central Michigan. So that was bugging me. But I think looking at this list, there's a couple of guys that I think in Card and Keene who have obviously got a lot of skins, or in Richardson too. They've got some skins on the wall. Card's definitely the darling. Keene will be interesting, though. UCF's fortunate to have Rice Plumlee coming back. He's definitely a dynamic dude, and he's going to be their guy entering Big 12 play, so something did have to give there, but he's definitely, a guy who's played a lot of snaps that'll be fun to keep an eye on, and, I think there's a lot of just we'll see potential with Kyron and Haynes King to a lesser extent, even though we've seen a bit more of him. So, this will be an interesting group. And this is like a fourth of the actual quarterbacks in the portal right now?
Oh, no,
this is 10th.
Yeah, so this is going to be cool to see where all these guys land. And I do think this is a cool part about the transfer portal is not necessarily all of these quarterbacks being in, but clearly there's some guys who deserve some spots somewhere that aren't getting it where they were for one reason or another, and they'll get that opportunity without having to waste eligibility and do all that, and I do like that.
All right, Craig, thank you. Paul, thank you. Jack McKenzie, appreciate you. And also Garrett Ross, great stuff. Levi Emery and Jacob I don't know where the hell they are, but we love them. They're doing something out there. We just sometimes don't know. Wimberley is the team earlier today in the high school football playoffs, beat Cuero to move into the 4A Division I championship game. They'll play the winner between Decatur and China Spring. China Spring's quarterback came from Wimberley. That's kind of a unique tie-in to that game.
To the transfer portal?
Yes. I'm David Smoak. We love all of you. We appreciate your passion for college football, for what we do and what we love from you as well. Thank you. Good night. Have an incredible weekend. Go Navy and Army, both of them.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an